All right, we're going to go ahead and dive in. This is more of a just sort of general overarching session. We're going to go into some vocal health and technique. We're going to go into music literacy. We're going to go into some song choices and repertoire selection, but I can kind of customize this to fit the needs that you guys have. So as we're going through, feel free to just pop up your hands and ask questions. I'm here to serve you, and with a small group like this, we can adjust and answer questions and go down rabbit holes a lot more effectively. I'm going to be going to AMEA later this week, and there I have 80 people in a room, so that's really a cut and dry, prepared thing. Here, when it's a small group, we can feel free to adjust to the crowd. So if you hear something, you really like it, and I start to move on, feel free to say, hey, let's spend a little more time there. I need more insight on this. Or if you hear me say something that you don't think directly applies to your classroom, you say, hey, how would you do that with third graders? How would you do that with recorder? How would you do? Feel free to ask those questions, but you don't have to, because I'll just keep going on my own, even if you don't. Let's start with singing a song. Let's get to know each other a little bit, all right? Listen. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Come and let us sing and dance and play. Sing it high, sing it low, sing it high, sing it low. Now I must be on my way. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Come and let us sing and dance and play. Sing it high, sing it low, sing it high, sing it low. Now I must be on my way. Phrase by phrase. Welcome all my friends on this fine day.
Welcome all my friends on this fine day.
Come and let us sing and dance and play.
Come and let us sing and dance and play.
Sing it high, sing it low, sing it high, sing it low.
Sing it high, sing it low, sing it high, sing it low.
Now I must be on my way.
Now I must be on my way.
And I pick a higher key for the kids, as I'm sure you would as well, but we're all pretty comfortable in sort of a medium range here. Can you match my motions? Right hand first. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Welcome all my friends
on this fine day.
Come and let us sing and dance and play. Left hand.
Come and let us sing and dance and play.
Up and down. Sing it high, sing it low. Sing it high, sing it low.
Sing it high, sing it low. Sing it high, sing it low.
Now I must be on my way.
Now I must be on my way.
Let's try the whole thing.
Welcome all my friends on this fine day.
And left.
Come and let us sing and dance and play.
And up.
Sing it high, sing it low. Sing it high, sing it low. Now I must be on my way.
So our right hand is going to shake, and if you want to come on up here with me. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Left hand.
Come and let us sing and dance and play.
Clap.
Sing it high, sing it low. Sing it high, sing it low. Now I must be
New
on
partner.
my way.
Let's stand. Find a partner. Start by shaking right hands. We got plenty of partners. Perfect. Right hand shake and.
Cooties aren't real, guys. Cooties aren't real.
You're fine, you're fine. If you need to, I can circle, dot. I am certified to give immunizations. My girlfriend is a kindergarten teacher. She has trained me effectively. I'm good. All right, right hand shake.
Welcome all my friends on this fine day.
Left hand.
Sing and dance and play.
Clap.
Sing it high, sing it low. Sing it high, sing it low. Now I must be
New
on
partner.
my way. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Come and let us sing and dance and play. Sing it high, sing it low. Sing it high, sing it low. Now I must be on my way. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Come and let us sing and dance and play.
Right together.
Sing it high, sing it low. Sing it high, sing it low. Now I must be
Back to our chairs. Thank you very much, friends.
Oh, we were on a roll.
Come and let us
sing and dance and play. Sing it high, sing it low. Sing it high, sing it low. Now I must be on my way.
Beautiful. There's a lot of welcome songs, hello songs, game songs in the packets there for you. I highly encourage you to not just think of those icebreaker songs and icebreaker activities at the beginning of the year. It's very easy to do a week or two of those, or even just a day in the beginning, and then you know your kids' names, and you start thinking, okay, we're good. Now we can move on to the folk songs, the ballads, the other stuff. But it's great to do some of those icebreaker, hello songs, welcome songs, handshake songs to keep your kids interacting with each other, especially the ones who don't know each other as well and don't hang out that well. It's easy for them to get kind of stuck in their pair groups, and their friend groups, and their little small circles and not interact as much. more broadly. It does also just kind of bring the classroom together a lot more to have a chance to have something simple and small like that gets everybody mixed up and moving around. Those things also work really well in performance. I know we have this pressure that every time we perform for an audience and for the parents that it has to be something of concert quality. There's a guy I learned a lot from, John Armstrong, who's fabulous in the music literacy world, and he talks about the difference between an informance and a performance, and that you can have moments of your concerts that are more about informing your audience what we do in music class than about performing for them and displaying the beautiful music we've crafted together. The problem that many of us can face is that when you give a high quality performance that is just a musical product, you end up looking more like a club than like a class. Because a lot of us have after-school club choir, we have these things. Even the general music sort of open house, your band concerts that you do during the day, if you're just doing a polished musical performance, it can look like something that doesn't have as much academic rigor. But when you do something that shows, okay, here's what we're learning. We're working on our steady beat, we're working on, you explain that to your parents and to your audience, then they get a little bit more bought in on the program. And this is the kind of thing that you could have the kids dancing all over the stage, moving around, interacting with each other, smiling and laughing and goofing around. It gets them moving and it gets the audience a little bit more engaged than just stand and deliver kind of stuff. Or even the orff instruments, which are fabulous, and you integrate that in with the singing and the dancing, it's all fabulous. But something like that can be really good to get the audience going. And then you can get the audience up singing along with you and moving along with you too, which can be really, really great. I had an experience that really drilled that home for me. I had a friend who was always bringing his students to perform at the Capitol, the State House, and like doing these events sort of at the state level. And he had a senator come up to him afterwards and talk to him, and he was talking about music education. And he came to me and said, I'll never do those performances again. And I said, why? He goes, well, I was talking to them, and they said, oh yeah, this is fabulous. We love when kids come out to perform for us. It's so great to see that, we don't get to get out there in the schools and see the kids that often. And he's like, oh, so, does that make you want to give more funding to the arts? He goes, no, I mean, these kids are great. They're great. They're fine. They don't need any help. They're doing great with what they have, right? So they see how good that performance is and say, well, they're doing fabulous. They don't need any more support. But if you can show them what you're working on and maybe show a piece in progress and then show it over the course of several performances throughout the year, show them building up those skills. I frequently had my choirs sight read in concert and print the sight reading into the program so the audience can follow along. What I learned was that I actually had to make it harder than I thought, because I thought that what I would want to do is make it an achievable goal for them so they could succeed and the audience would be proud and say, oh yeah, great job. But what happened was the audience didn't believe they were really sight reading, because they've never seen someone actually bomb on stage. So I needed to make it hard enough that there were some obvious mistakes and they had to correct them so the audience got, this is not just a joke. And in fact, I had a student grounded because of the sight reading in the concert. He came back to me the next day and said, Mr. Keene, I got grounded last night. The concert was over at like 10:30 at night. What did you do? How'd you have time? And he says, well, we were riding in the car and my mom said, hey, that piece where Mr. Keene pretended that you didn't know the song, but you really knew it. It sounded really good. I like that. But it was just a little 4-part thing I'd written out. He goes, Mom, what do you mean? You mean the sight reading? No, we had never seen that before. That's what sight reading is, Mom. He goes, yeah, fun. I know it's a joke, Mr. Keene, ha ha ha. Like, you don't know the song, it's gonna be terrible. But then it sounded great. It was great. No, Mom, we worked really hard on that. We had to practice every day to get good at that. Yeah, okay, it's fine. You can give up the joke, Gus. It's okay. Mom, we sight read that, like screaming in her face, grounded for a week. But that's okay. The thing is, if my kids are going to get grounded for something, being too proud of their sight reading is a pretty good thing to be too proud of. So I say that to say you have to make it clear to your audience and to your constituents, to your admin, to your parents, to your voters, to all of these people, the value that you guys are providing in the classroom. Because most of us just live within that small space of our classroom with our students, and our students love us, and they get so much out of what we do, but it doesn't live outside the classroom. And it's easy to convince yourself that concerts are enough, but concerts are the kind of thing that an after-school club would do. It doesn't really show you that there's any academic value outside of the club setting, unless you make that effort to insert that in there. So think about how you can insert the things that you're doing in your classroom into those performances as well. I'm sure many of you have done this before, I'm sure many of you do it regularly. But if you think about what else am I doing in this one opportunity I have all semester, all season, I might have one chance in front of this parent, this admin, this whoever, to show them the value of music education. Am I choosing a polished performance product, or am I also choosing the educational products that I'm working on throughout the year? It also helps you get off that pressure that you can feel, like the many classroom teachers who feel like they're constantly teaching to the test. It can feel like you're always teaching to the next concert, you're always teaching to the next performance, you're always teaching to the next open house, when you know, hey, it's okay to show half a song. And to say, hey, we don't really have the dance together on this very well, it's gonna look a little sloppy, so we're gonna show you one song that we're working on, and this song is in a working process, and you'll notice that the movements are not quite in sync, and sometimes the kids might forget some of the words, because we're still learning this song. And then afterwards, we're gonna sing a song that's really polished and very clean together, so you can see the progress they make. This first song they've been working on for about 2 weeks. This next song they've been working on for about 4 months. And then here you'll really see the gap there. And that can really help the audience to see, oh wow, okay, they're learning and growing and developing here. I really love showing them the sight reading because it's a thing that the audience knows they can't do. Whereas when they just hear a good performance from the band or an open house performance with dancing in a song with the kids or choir performance with the kids singing, when they hear that they think, well, okay, wow, those kids are so talented. They're so gifted. Well, they're so lucky to have such a wonderful music teacher and to have such a beautiful gift of music inside them. It's not a beautiful gift. We bust our butts giving them those skills and that talent, but that's what parents and admins see. And for me, that is sort of where I wanted to start with us today, because we have a lot of challenges in music education: scheduling, funding, support from admins, support from parents, support from the state, from politicians, from the walkouts, strikes, all these sort of things. There's 1,000 factors that are pushing against us. But the thing is, all those people who we feel like we're fighting against, who don't see the value of music education, almost every single one of them had 8 years of general music. And a lot of them have kids who are now going through general music. So we have a chance to impact them. We have them in the classroom, we have them in performances, we have a chance to show them why this matters, and a lot of times we don't take that opportunity. So take an opportunity, take the chance to advocate for your program, to advocate for why music education matters, to tell these people what it is that you're doing in the classroom that isn't just letting talented kids perform their talented, beautiful music. Because everyone agrees that's wonderful, but there's Phoenix Children's Chorus, there's Phoenix Boys Choir, there's Mesa Youth Band. There's 1,000 groups and community ensembles that can provide that same service of high quality music, and a lot of times a much better service. Most of us, when we're working with school ensembles, don't feel like we're accomplishing the same high level musicianship we could in an outside organization where students are paying tuition and doing more extensive rehearsals and paying for private coaching and get all of that sort of resource. So if you're only hinging it all on performance product, you're not able to show these people what you're really providing in the classroom. So I want to spend a little time getting our bodies moving and giving you some tools for vocal warm-ups, for strategies for integrating singing more into your classroom, give you a couple songs to work on as well. So I'm going to ask you to stand up, please, and do a quick lesson from bottom to top. All of this is targeted at the elementary level, so none of this is too complex for your kids. Some of the anatomy seems a little bit complicated, but that's okay. I think that it helps them to understand a lot better why we focus on music so much in the classroom and how it can improve their lives. When they understand the science a little bit better, what I found is it takes away some of that mystery and magic. A lot of kids think singing is a thing you're born with or not. Same thing with playing instruments, that it's a thing you're born with, a gift, a talent. And if you can explain to them how it works in the body and how it works in the brain, they start to understand, okay, maybe this is something I could develop. When we sing, our body is our instrument, from bottom to top. And any tension anywhere in our body is going to creep up into our voice. And a tight voice is not a beautiful voice. A relaxed voice is a beautiful voice. So we need to line up our body from bottom to top and keep it nice and relaxed so that our body is open and free. I was speaking with your friend Ann over here a little bit before about having a speaker in the classroom. It can be really helpful. Teaching is the #1 profession for voice damage in the country. And if you have another 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years of teaching left in you, it would do you well to think about using proper technique while you speak throughout the day. You might consider something like Ann did, having a speaker system that can take the pressure off, but just proper diaphragmatic breathing, proper elevation, alignment, posture, proper relaxation in the vocal instrument, projection instead of constantly pushing volume and trying to shout. Those things will allow you to use your voice all day long, all week long, all year long, all career long. And I would hate to see any of you guys have to leave the profession because of voice damage or voice overuse. It's really, really sad. I've seen many highly qualified teachers who weren't able to finish out their careers because of their voices. Let's stretch up high, bounce your tiptoes, and as your arms come down, keep that rib cage nice and tall and proud. Good. And roll the shoulders back. Yeah, find a little extra room, excellent. And roll the shoulders forward. I'm going to treat you like my elementary classroom, so I apologize if it seems patronizing. When I sing, the power for my voice comes from inside my body. It comes from my breath. When I breathe in, where does my air go? In my lungs. My lungs are like balloons. My lungs fill up with air, and they can push that air back out. Now, I don't want my lungs to fill up with air forever, because if you try to fill a balloon too much, it's going to pop, and we don't want your lungs to pop. That's bad news. Your body is smart. It knows that you're dumb. You're so dumb that if it let you fill up your lungs until they pop, you'd probably do it in like 10 seconds, just to see if you could do it. Bet I could pop my lungs before you can, dude. Easy. Yeah, 5th grade boys, yeah, they'd be popping their lungs all day long. So, your body's smart. It puts something around your lungs to keep them safe. What does your body put around your lungs to keep them safe? Ribs, rib cage. It's like a cage. It keeps that lung trapped and safe. But it's a little bit open at the bottom here. These last ribs don't connect so much. It can change shape. It's not a cage that stays the same size. Everybody roll your shoulders forward and hunch over like grandma. When I hunch over like grandma, do I have big ribs or small ribs? Small. If I have small ribs, do I have big lungs or small lungs? If I have small lungs, do I have big breath or small breath? If I have small breath, do I have big voice or small voice? If I have my shoulders hunched over, if I have my rib cage small, if I have my arms in front of my body, if I have my arms crossed, if I have my body slouched, I have a small rib cage, small lungs, small breath, small squeaky voice, and nobody likes a small squeaky voice. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. No, we want to open up our bodies. Roll those shoulders back, stand up tall and proud like a superhero, feet at your shoulders, bouncy knees. Just like you got that cape pulling back and blowing in the wind, stand up tall and proud, arms down at your sides. Very nice. And when I roll my shoulders back, I have a big rib cage. And when I have a big rib cage, I have big lungs, and big lungs make a big breath, make a big, beautiful voice. Everyone taking a nice deep breath with me. And sigh. Oh, beautiful. Now, the thing is, when I breathe in, I can expand my rib cage all the way around, which is great. That gives me a lot more lung space. I can't get any lung space on the top. Moving my shoulders at all doesn't help me at all. I'm not a camel. I can't hide extra air inside my little humps up here on my shoulders. So if I push my shoulders up when I breathe, all that does is close off my throat, and then I have a small squeaky voice again. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Don't want that sound, so keep those shoulders down the whole time you breathe. Take one more deep breath and don't let your shoulders move. Beautiful, beautiful. The last part, we talked about going around. We need to keep that rib cage open and proud. We talked about the top. Don't let those shoulders move. The bottom of your lungs has a big flat muscle that keeps your bottom guts away from your top guts. Some of you might have heard that word before. A lot of music teachers like to use that word. It starts with the word di, and it's a big old muscle that keeps your lungs safe. What's it called? Diaphragm. Diaphragm. Good job. Many people can tell me the word diaphragm. When I say, where are you supposed to breathe? How are you supposed to breathe? Diaphragm, diaphragm, diaphragm. But I very rarely get a good definition of the diaphragm from students. Mostly what I found diaphragm means to a middle schooler or an elementary schooler or a high schooler, and a lot of college kids too, is diaphragm. Now, a sciencey sounding word that once I say it, my music teacher doesn't ask me how to breathe anymore. That's about as far as it goes. You say, what do you breathe? You say, I breathe from the diaphragm. They go, okay, good job, kid, and then they move on. But I've had many who think the diaphragm is a flat muscle right here on the front of the abs. It is not. It is a flat horizontal muscle underneath your lungs, and it can drop like a bowl. It is underneath the lungs. You imagine it as the floor of the rib cage. It's the easiest way to see it. You can actually feel your diaphragm. If you take your fingers, relax your abs, scoop in under your bottom rib, and then cough, you'll feel a muscle pop your fingers right out. That's your diaphragm. So you can move that diaphragm. Now you can't consciously control it. You don't have control over that. Just like your heart or your liver or your spleen, there's parts of your body that it knows it can't give you control of because you're too dumb. If your body decided that you had complete control of your heart, it's your job to keep your heart beating. So you wake up first thing in the morning and you're yawning. Beat, 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 beat. Okay, I'm gonna go brush my teeth. Cool. Beat, 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 beat. You get in the shower and you start doing your shampoo. Beat, 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 beat. You'd be dead by breakfast. None of us can handle those complex body functions, and the diaphragm is one of those things that your body says, too important, not gonna let you handle it. But what you can do is make space for the diaphragm, and when you do, it does its job on its own. So for the diaphragm to drop, there's stuff there. There's a whole bunch of stuff that gets in the way. Your liver, your intestines, your stomach, your spleen, they've got to go out of the way. And they're not empty. You can't just squish them small. They're full of squishy stuff. They got to go somewhere. Can't go up. That's where the diaphragm is. Can't go down. That's where the legs are. They're full of leg stuff. They have to go out and around. Just like a big inner tube we're filling up around our bellies. One of my coaches used to tell me, imagine you have a big belt around your belly button, and that belt is made of noses. And when you breathe in, you're sucking in through your 360-degree nose belt. I want you to take your hands, make your fingertips touch, put your palms on your belly. When you breathe in, you're going to let your belly expand so those fingertips come apart. Just like that. Great job. And then breathe back out. We're going to do it again, and this time we're going to hiss. Make sure those abs are nice and tight. That's where the control comes from. Your neck and throat stay relaxed the whole time. The more power you put down here for your breath, the more free your throat can be. And the more free your throat is, the more beautiful and ringy and tall and rich and full your speaking and singing voice can be. As soon as you try to breathe from your throat, everything tightens up. Amazing grace, amazing grace. You want to relax and open the space up here while engaging everything down here. When you make room, the diaphragm drops and you get access to all this extra lung space. The more air you have, the easier it is to sing your high notes, the easier it is to sing in tune, the easier it is to finish your phrase, the easier it is to project and get your voice to the back of the hall. You need that breath. Take your hands and rotate them so you're on your sides. Feel those obliques. Your fingertips should be on the hips. Your palms should be on the ribs. Squeeze the obliques in the middle. When you breathe in, make them come out to the sides of the walls. Relax your shoulders. One more. Pulse your hiss this time. Squeeze the abs, relax the throat. Let it out. Very nice job. You can have a seat. Sit up nice and tall. We've got our nice elevated standing posture. I'm going to ask you to use all of that from the hips up. My coach would say, stand up from the waist up. So think that you're standing up here, that same elevated ribcage we worked, that same low center belly breath. We're going to take a nice deep breath together and sigh from the top of our range. Oh! Good. Bottom to top. Oh! Beautiful. And the lip bubble. You don't need the big floppy horse lips like I have, but it can help. If you can't do it, then most likely that is going to be an issue of facial tension. It can help to close your eyes, put your hands on your cheeks, and tug a little bit to make sure those muscles stay loose. Imagine that you just got back from the dentist and there's still some Novocaine left over in your jaw. And then just let those lips flop a bit without pitch. Then a low pitch. Then move that a bit. Then see how high you can go. So the lip bubble forces you, it forces you to use more air and to relax this part of the instrument. So it's really great for accessing the high part of your range because you have to have this relaxed. So you can try right now, put a big smile on your face, big tight cheeks, big smile, and try to do a lip bubble. It doesn't come out. It doesn't come out. So you need to relax while also providing more air than just the normal side. Oh. A lot more air when you do that bubble. So it's engaging the air while keeping the relaxation up here. It's worth spending some time if your kids can't lip bubble to help practice with them so they can get that skill because it helps teach them to relax this part of their bodies, which is essential before you start singing. Because as soon as those lights are on, as soon as you're seeing that big audience, when you're up on the stage and you're ready to sing and you're in your little uniform and you're all nervous, all that tension is going to creep up into the throat. And they're going to hunch up like this. They're going to lose their breath support. They're going to tighten up. You've probably had this experience where they sounded beautiful in a dress rehearsal, sounded great in the classroom. You put them up in front of an audience. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Come and let us sing and dance. Where 10 minutes before, when you were backstage, they're going, welcome all my friends on this fine day. It's all fine. But as soon as they're in performance mode, tighten up. So you got to teach them how to release that. The lip bubble, it forces that, but the skill that it teaches you when you can't lip bubble, and then you do, That skill of releasing is the biggest skill they need going into a performance. They need to learn to let go of whatever they just brought into it and stand like a singer. You are probably familiar with your different registers and your different voices. This is the easiest way that I found to get kids to access their chest and their head. Repeat after me. This is my speaking voice.
This is my speaking voice.
This is my chest voice.
This is my chest voice.
This is my singing voice.
This is my singing voice.
This is my head voice.
This is my head voice.
Now we know that we can sing in our chest voice and we can speak in our head voice, and there's subtleties to both of those. But in general, most kids are very chest dominant. They're stuck in their chest all the time. They're talking there all the time. It's helpful to teach them to use their floaty head voice as the default when they sing, and then let them know when you're singing a song where the chest might be more appropriate. If it's a pop song, if it's going a little bit lower, if it's sort of a bit low range, then you might want to use more chest there. If they're singing the alto part in a 2-part song, sure. But most of the time we want to default to that floaty head sound because it blends better, it's a healthier, more relaxed sound, it gets us a more beautiful tone, it's easier to support for 1,000 reasons. But in general, we need that floaty head sound. So I like this one real quick because it gives them a visceral experience in their bodies of where they feel that voice, and so then I can instantly, when they sing a song to me, welcome all my friends on this fine day. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. That's all I need to do, and I can do this from the stage. There's a lot of things we do in our classrooms, like saying, no, don't shout at me. More relaxed, tall vowels, steady beat. Whatever you're saying to them, loose wrists, whatever your cues are, you can't use those in a concert. You can't just shout at the kids while they're in the middle of a song, but you can give them physical gestures. So if you integrate the physical gestures into your classroom teaching that you will use later on in the performances, you now have a wider repertoire. Most of us learned conducting from professional orchestral band choral conductors at the university level, where it's all about patterns, very clean, clear gestures, which is great and wonderful and certainly useful. But for most kids, they're not going to be able to decode that. Even if you spend the year educating them on what you're trying to show them with your conducting, they're not following a 4 pattern. They're trying to keep tempo, they're trying to get breaths and entrances, they're trying to get cutoffs, but you can add more to that. You can give them tone, you can give them pitch reminders, you're a little flat. You can give them registration reminders, head voice over their chest voice. You can give them breathing reminders by engaging with the breath down here while you're conducting. All of those gestures can help show the students what you're asking for them while they're actually singing, rather than shouting over them. Let's do a little bit more of our vocal work together before we move on into literacy. You can take out your warm-up packet, selected vocal warm-ups. Wonderful if you sing in your classroom and do songs. I would encourage you to throw in a little bit of vocal exercise work every once in a while, just to help extend your kids' range, get them used to that. It makes the transition into choir much more smooth for them as well. As many of you know, we teach recorder in order to help get those kids into band. They already are used to holding an instrument, to making a mouth shape with that instrument, to moving their fingers on that instrument, to reading the notation. A kid who's played recorder in general music is light years ahead of a kid who walks into the first day of 5th grade band with no prior instrumental experience. So you want to have something that gets them from no experience to the place where they're ready for an ensemble. Same thing is true from a vocal perspective. You have a lot of kids that come into choir with no experience of what a choir actually is. They get a little exposure to vocal warm-ups in their music classroom, then it's not so weird when they come in and start trying to sing them when they come to their first choir rehearsal. Also really helpful for you to just take a few minutes before the start of the day to give yourself a little vocal warm-up, and then at the end of the day to do it again. Even if you don't sing in the classroom that much, you're using your voice all day long. You are a professional voice user, more so than most professional speakers. Again, like I was saying, I was using my voice far more when I was teaching full-time than I do now doing professional speaking for most of my day. Because I'm doing 4 hours a day, maybe, if I have 2 or 3 workshops back to back. You guys are doing 6, 7, 8 hours. If you have an evening rehearsal, if you have tutoring after school, if you're going back home and talking to your spouse after meals, you're still using that all day long. For a pianist, once they're done for the day, this is off. Once they're done for the day, they can just close the lid and their instrument stays in a box until the next day. When you're done using your voice, you're still going to use it for the rest of the day, to talk to your husband, to whisper, to shout, to scream, to laugh, to cry, to sing along. Every day, all day long, you're using that voice. So if you take good care of it, it'll take good care of you. I just want to give you a few simple ones. This one is really, really great for engaging the breath and keeping the throat relaxed. So can you take your hands, one hand, put it on your belly. Give me your best Santa. Ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho,
You want to
ho.
feel that belly bounce and keep your neck nice and relaxed. Ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho, ho.
Ha, ha, ha.
Ha, ha, ha.
Very nice. I'll start down here in C so it doesn't go too high for you guys. Ha, 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 ha. What I want you to feel is that the abs start and stop the sound while the throat stays relaxed. If I start and stop my sound with my throat, you can hear it. Belly. Ha, 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 ha. Ha, 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 ha. Throat. You hear that closing off sound? That's my glottis, my vocal cords clamping down in between each one and restarting instead of just staying open and relaxed and free. Everyone say, ha.
Ha.
Everyone say, That's your vocal cords closed off, a glottal stop as we call it, closed off and pressed. We want to keep them open and relaxed. Ha. Keep that throat open and relaxed and say, ha, 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 ha. Ya, 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 ha, 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 ha. Beautiful. I love some vocal sighs and sirens in between each because that keeps it nice and relaxed and helps your larynx free up from any tension that that exercise brought. A lot of times with an exercise like that, as the breathing time is so short, you can bring some tension into the instrument as you go up. And then you carry that into the next one. So if you notice that with your students, even if you're not doing vocal warm-ups in the classroom at all, if you sing a song, if you're playing instruments and you see tension creeping into their bodies, take a second to do a stretch, to reset, to let go of that before you move into your next activity. Otherwise, you're carrying that tension over and over again from phrase, to song, to activity, and they start associating that physical tension with the music making. And then it becomes a habit. And then every time they go to play, they start turning on the tension. I see this a lot with wind and brass players who then go on to become singers. A lot of them have had extensive breathing gym training. They've worked really hard to develop a good, strong embouchure. So they come into my classroom with very tight faces and very tight bodies down here. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. And that's just where they've learned to produce music from, a body like that. Now I know that's not what you're trying to teach your kids, but it can be what they learn if you don't teach them continuously to release that tension from their bodies. That tension creeps over into the music and it can damage them long term. Skip the second one, go down to the third one. This one's really nice for getting that floaty head voice and just keeping your voice nice and relaxed as you head down into your lower register. Sigh, oh, I. Everybody give me a nice sigh. Oh. Sigh, oh, I. Keep that big open yawning sigh space inside your body while you sing. Sigh, oh, I. Sigh, oh, I. Beautiful. We're going to talk a little anatomy. You take one hand, put it on your throat, and swallow. That bump you feel is your Adam's apple, or your Eve's pomegranate, or your vocal cords, or your vocal folds, or your larynx, or your voice box. There's a lot of different names for it. You can put your hand down now, unless you enjoy having it there. And that bump is where all the sounds in your voice come from the very first cry you gave on the day you were born, to your whispers, to your laughs, to your shouts, to your screams, to every sound you make. It comes from this little bump inside your throat. Look at your thumbs. Your vocal folds are two little muscles that are about the size of your thumbnails. They're very, very small, and they buzz very, very fast to chop up the air so that you can make your beautiful sounds. Your lungs work together with your vocal folds to make every sound you produce. And those little vocal folds buzz very, very, very quickly. Everyone take your hand like this, horizontal, and can you move it up and down once per second? One, one, one. One, twice. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 times. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 400 times. Not too easy, but your brain and your vocal cords can do that flawless. Sing for me. Jen's down here. Ready? In the lower octave, you're moving 220 times per second. In the higher octave, you're moving 440 times per second. For sopranos, if they're going up for that high A or above, you can get above 1,000 times per second of those little folds buzzing against each other. And it has to be exactly that number. It can't move up, it can't move down. That's what flat and sharp are. If you want to sing in tune, you need to sing exactly 220 times, not 225, not 217. It needs to be dead on, and your brain is really good at doing that math, which is pretty cool, because most of us didn't know what those numbers were before we came in today. And you don't need to know those numbers, I just played some notes. And what happens when I play those notes that's so cool, and I really love teaching kids this, because they think music is magic. They really do. Most kids think music is a magical thing. They think it's just this thing that you're born with, that you're gifted with, that some artists who are inspired by the gods or by fate or by whatever they believe in are manifesting forth from their spirit. And it's not, it's science. It is magic too, it is beautiful, it is art, it is inspired, but it also is science. And a lot of our kids don't have any understanding of how music actually works in their bodies. So, assuming this was a real piano, when I hit this, a hammer hits a string, that string vibrates. Inside the body of the instrument, all of the air in that instrument vibrates. So depending on what key I hit, it vibrates at a different speed. The one we were singing before, 220 times per second. Inside the piano, it vibrates 220 times per second. In this piano, it's a speaker that vibrates 220 times per second. And then the air in this room, all the way around this room, vibrates 220 times per second. You can't see it because air is invisible. But if you could see the air molecules, the second I hit that, you'd see all the molecules in the room going shaking at 220 times per second. And that air bounces off the walls and comes over to hit you right in the eardrums. And your eardrum, which is just like the drums we play in music class, that drum head starts to move back and forth 220 times per second. And it is next to an organ called the cochlea. Can you say cochlea?
Cochlea.
Cochlea. It's like a snail shell. It's curled and it's full of liquid. And that liquid starts to vibrate at 220 times per second, the same speed as the note that you're playing. And then there's little hairs inside there that pick up those sounds. And those hairs are each designed, they each have a different thickness and length. And each hair picks up a different frequency range. Just like on your guitar or your violin or the strings inside the piano, the strings that are thicker and longer have a different pitch than the strings that are shorter and thinner. So different hairs pick up different sounds, and as you get older, you start to lose your hearing. And the small threads that pick up the high pitches start to die first. And that's why a lot of times old men will tell their wives they can't hear them. What? Huh? Can't hear? So there's actually a physical explanation for that. You lose your high pitches before you lose your low pitches. So it's easier to understand a man's voice when you're 95 years old than it is to understand a higher pitched voice, because the high pitches go away fast. Side note, as teachers and educators, and for your students as well, hearing damage is super endemic right now. Beyond the voice damage issue for teachers, hearing damage is super, super common. A lot of people who are blasting out their hearing with concerts and loud live events, but also a lot of people who are doing it just with headphones. So be careful on the volume that you're doing on those, and consider getting earplugs if you have big, really loud, noisy events, especially you band people. A screaming elementary school band just blasting in your face. If you're doing that day in, day out, you're gonna have some rough effects on your hearing by the end of your life. And they do make musician earplugs that allow you to still hear the pitch and still hear the tone and still hear that stuff, but just dampen the effect of the volume overall. So unless you have a space that really lends itself there, if you have a space that's very live, it can really cause some damage long term. Yes?
There's a cheaper, I was talking to a friend of mine that's an audiologist, and if anybody wants the name of it, she recommended a cheaper earplug. I have it on my phone if at some point somebody wants to know about it.
Nice, nice. I would love to get that.
Because I was actually thinking
We're
about
done.
it.
Those are always useful. So we talked about getting that nice floaty tone. You did that beautifully. That larynx right here that you felt vibrating, it vibrates all the way through. We vibrate off the walls, we vibrate to our eardrums, we vibrate to our cochlea, and then our brain starts to perceive it. And our brain can't perceive it by shaking. You don't want your brain to shake. That's bad news. Your brain fires electricity, and it fires that electricity exactly 220 times per second. And if you were sitting in an MRI and a scientist scanned your brain while I played this note, if the scientist couldn't hear the note, he could scan your brain and say he was listening to an A on the bass clef, because they could see that electricity firing. Now what's really neat is that whole process seems pretty complicated. Every single time the note changes, the math changes. So when I play, every one of those is a different number and your brain adjusts instantly. You don't need to know what the numbers are. You don't need to know how to adjust that. Your brain figures out, okay, bum, bum, bum. It does all the math to figure out what those notes are. And for what's really cool is when you learn that octave displacement skill, where us male teachers can sing in our lower octave and the kids can sing along in their higher octave. What their brain is doing is doubling the frequency that they hear. So 220 comes out of the piano, 220 bounces off the wall, 220 goes in their ear, 220 fires in their brain. Their brain says, I'm not supposed to sing 220, I'm supposed to sing 440. It doubles it, does the math, sends that signal to the cords, sends that signal to the lungs, balances the air pressure with the pressure in the vocal folds to produce, which is pretty neat because that happens instantaneously with zero understanding. Their bodies just figure that out on their own. But once you explain that process, you don't have to go into as much detail as I did, obviously. But if you explain that it is a mathematical and biological process that helps them to sing songs and sound beautiful, then they figure out that it's something they can get better at. It's not something magical and instinctual that you're born with, that you're gifted with, or talented with. Now, of course, some of us are born with better instruments than others, certainly. But everyone can learn to sing beautifully. Tone has that same effect. Now, you may know less about this than about the actual frequency production, but the tone you produce with your voice in the rest of music is called timbre. You're familiar with timbre. Timbre is our general catch-all term for all the things we can't describe with our other music words. So we have melody, we have pitch, we have duration, we have volume, we have all those things. Timbre captures the color of the sound so that you know that this is a piano and this is a voice. Ah, and this is an ah, and this is an e. Timbre is what tells you the difference between those. Timbre is affected by not the pitch that you play, the fundamental, but the overtones. Most of you are probably familiar with overtones because you're instrumental players. Now that overtone sequence starts with the octave. So when our string is vibrating, when I play that 220, it's also vibrating at the half length of the string, which is double the frequency, 440. It's also vibrating at 1/3 of the length of the string, which is 3 times the frequency, 660. And now we have a new pitch, we have our fifth. Then we double it again, we get to 440. Then we go to 5 times, we have our 660, we have our 880, we have our 220, 12, 1100, 1100. We get our major third there. And now we have our full chord. And the strength of those relative overtones, which are louder than the others, is what determines the timbre. I have a good friend who's an audio engineer who's done with me before, building up the sound of a trumpet and the sound of a flute from scratch. Just make a sine wave that just has the fundamental pitch, and then start adding overtones and adjust the volume until you get the sound of the instrument that you want. And that's how a lot of the original MIDI programmers had those sounds. You know, a lot of those sounds that don't quite sound like real instruments. You're like, okay, who thought this was a trumpet? It just sounds like an electronic squawking duck. It was people messing around with the overtones to try to find the closest thing to a trumpet because they couldn't fully analyze the spectrum of the trumpet and have the computers that could do the math to just replicate a real sound. They were trying to do it from scratch. Now you do that from scratch every single time you talk and make a sound. If we say together, Mary had a little lamb.
Mary had a little lamb.
E, H, A, D, A, U, E, T, O, U, A, M, B. All of those individual phonemes require a different shape of the instrument to produce a new timbre. It's literally like taking a flute, changing it to a violin, then changing it to a clarinet, then changing it to a bass saxophone, then changing it to a tuba, then changing it to a piano, then changing it to a ukulele. You are reshaping your instrument in real time constantly. The tongue, the jaw, the soft palate, the larynx dropping, the teeth, the lips, all coordinate together to make all those different shapes. Babies babble in the phonemes, the individual sounds of every single human language that has ever existed. A newborn baby will produce every sound that exists in all languages, but they will stop producing the sounds that they don't hear. So when you talk to them in multiple languages, they can hold on to those multiple phonemes. You'll notice that some people who come from different cultures and different languages have trouble with some of the sounds in our language. People in particular from Eastern cultures tend to have trouble with that R-L distinction because they don't have a distinct phoneme for R and L. They just have one sound that is the tongue, tip of the tongue against the roof of the mouth. Say r-r-r, l-l-l. You feel that the tip of your tongue doesn't quite hit as high when you do an R as when you do an L. In some cultures, they don't have that distinction. It's the same. So, when you are producing a sound, you are reshaping your instrument to shape the overtones to make a more beautiful sound. And that is math. You could teach a robot to do it. It's hard, we haven't done it yet. We still barely can teach robots how to walk. Being a human is very difficult. Our brains do most of the hard work for us because like we talked about before, our brains know that we're dumb. And they need to take over most of the actions so that we can't have conscious control over it. but you can take conscious control of your sound, just like you can with your breathing. You can't do it with your heartbeat. That is locked off. Your brain doesn't let you have any access. But your breathing, your brain says, okay, sometimes I'll let you control the breathing, sure. But I'll take over most of the time. Same thing with tone. You can change the shape of your instrument and adjust that sound. So a lot of kids will say, I don't have a pretty voice. I don't have a beautiful voice. I don't have a singing voice. I'm not a good singer. They're not a good singer yet. I don't speak Russian, but I could speak Russian if I was trained and had a teacher and a textbook. I just haven't taken the classes. They can learn to reshape their instruments to make a more beautiful sound. That's what we've been working on. That larynx right here, we want to be able to drop that. The easiest way to get that extra space is to imagine that 1950s gangster voice from a gangster movie, The Henchman, where you'd say, hey boss, what's the plan? How are we going to get the good guys, huh? How are we going to take those guys out? That kind of feeling, that dopey voice, gives you an artificially low larynx. If we close everything off and have that very nasal kindergarten sound, then our larynx shoots up to the top of our throat and everything is very small. Everyone say, Mary had a little lamb.
Mary had a little lamb.
And you'll feel that your larynx is pulling up against the roof of your throat. If you put your hand there, you can feel it come right up to the top. Mary had a little lamb.
Mary had a little lamb.
Normal speaking voice. Mary had a little lamb.
Mary had a little lamb.
Now talk like a dopey gangster from the 1950s. Mary had a little lamb. Feel how your larynx comes down to the bottom of your throat there, yeah?
So what you're doing when you push your larynx down, I don't want you to physically push it because that can cause damage, so don't touch it, but just feel that it moves. What happens when it drops is you have a larger resonating chamber. You're going from an upright piano to a grand piano. Instead of the voice vibrating just up here, you now get access to all that extra throat space. And it doesn't seem like much because the larynx only drops a few inches. So you'd think it doesn't change the tone that much. But your mouth isn't that big. It's only a couple inches. If you double the space of your instrument, if you imagine going from an upright piano to a piano that has twice the size of that body, it's going to change the sound. You now have a bigger, more beautiful sound. You can do that on the bottom. You can also do it on the top. You've probably heard soft palate before. Yes? Yes. Take the tip of your tongue, go behind your front teeth, top front teeth. You'll feel that you have hard gums up there. That's called your hard palate because it's hard. When you sing in the shower or in a bathroom with like tiles, or if you sing in a big stone cathedral, something with hard walls, you notice that your voice echoes and vibrates more vibrantly, right? You have these sound panels on these walls here to absorb some of that sound, because if you didn't, you'd get a lot of echo and reverb of my voice throughout this room. So that hard palate helps that sound vibrate to make it more beautiful and more resonant. If you keep moving your tongue up to the roof of your mouth, you'll feel that it gets squishy up there. And that's your soft palate, because it's soft. And the soft one can move. So when your larynx drops, you also want to raise that soft palate, and that gives you that big, open, full, this is CNN kind of voice. That Darth Vader kind of voice. That full, rich, beautiful voice. Excuse me. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Kids can make that distinction very, very quickly. What it takes is to get them that big open space. You got to imagine having a big open space. And a lot of times you don't need to explain any of this. You just say, give me your kindergarten voice. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Now give me your high school voice. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Now give me your opera singer voice. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Okay, now take like 5 years off of your opera voice, because most of the time they're going to be silly and ridiculous when they use their opera voice. So you want them to take the edge off of that. But they can find that space very quickly. Easiest way to access the soft palate is to yawn.
And what you'll find with yourself and with your classes is that if you try to use this large space, you're going to find yourself yawning pretty frequently. Because for most of you, if you haven't been trained as classical singers, then you're not used to using all this space. So your body thinks when you try to raise your soft palate, oh, I must have to yawn, because that's the only reason I've ever raised my soft palate in 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. So it just makes you have to yawn. Yawning is a very interesting thing because it is contagious cross-species. If a monkey yawns in front of a dog, the dog will yawn. And if a dog yawns at you, you'll want to yawn. We don't quite understand why. It's one of those things like sleep. We're not quite sure. But it just is one of those weird things. So your kids, if you start to speak with a more elevated tone and you have them sing like that, they're going to start yawning. It doesn't mean they're bored with you. It just means that their bodies are not used to that space yet. And I see several of you yawning already. That's okay. I know I'm not boring. That's all right. Good job. So now that we have that big open space, let's go back to the one we just sang. Sit up tall, use that nice elevation, and go sigh, oh, I. Try to think that big dropped larynx, that dopey voice. Hey, boss. And think that yawn space in the back. Oh, lots of space. Sigh, oh, I. Sigh, oh, I.
Switch back to your kindergarten voice.
Back to your opera voice.
It'd be very good to bounce between those with the kids, go through the extremes so they can find that beautiful thing in the middle. I find that it's a lot of us, as if any of you have ever done any drama coaching too, you constantly find this where you're like, more face, more body, come on, get more engaged, tell me the story, be expressive while you're performing. They're constantly asking for more, but you never ever have the chance to tell a kid that they're being over the top. Some of us have that chance. Some of us have a few goofballs in our classroom who are a little bit over the top, but most of our kids have never actually experienced over the top performing, particularly in an actual performance setting. So I ask my kids to actually go over the top with everything so they know where over the top is. For me, most of the time, in terms of facial expression, body expression, all that stuff, I want like a 7 out of 10. I want you more than average, but not so crazy that people are going to make fun of you. So I want a 7, which might be, welcome all my friends on this fine day. So I ask my kids, and I'll say, okay, can you give me that? And they'll go, welcome all my friends on this fine day. I say, no, smile. And they go, welcome all my friends on this fine day. So make the biggest smile you can. And they go, welcome all my friends on this fine day. So, okay, I want a 10 out of 10. I want you to be so over the top that I tell you can never perform that way again because it's so silly and ridiculous. I want you to make everyone laugh. And what I would do for a 10 is, welcome all my friends on this fine day. And what my 10-year-olds do is, welcome all my friends on this fine day. I say, great, that was a 5. I want a 7 and I asked you for a 10. So let's see what but once you can push them past that and get a kid to actually go, welcome all my friends on this fine day, then you can get them to go, welcome all my friends on this fine day, which is lovely and restrained and not crazy and over the top and attention-seeking. You need to get them past that level. Same thing here with the tone. You take them from the really gross, weird kindergarten tone. They're making a sound that's, welcome all my friends on this fine day. It's not terrible, but it's a fine sound for kindergarten, but it could be taller. Make them make a weirder, grosser sound. First, take the thing they're already doing and amplify it. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Cool. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. High school. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Mom. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. Opera. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. And you can pull a kid out from class. Take an individual who you know is a good kid, take them over and put them in the back of the room and say, I want you to listen and tell us which one sounds the best. Kindergarten, middle school, high school, opera. Most of the time, they're going to land on high school. Because as soon as you have something at the top, it's going to be the over-the-top, silly, ridiculous thing. So if opera is the tallest thing you do, but you could do opera and then you could say, now do great-grandma voice. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. But okay, you can make a more silly voice than opera voice, but you find a place in the middle that's beautiful and rich and full. Great, now that we have the space in our tone, we have our breath support, we have all of that engaged. The last thing I want to talk to you about is resonance versus volume. So, I want you to take 2 fingers on each hand and press them into your cheekbones. And go, sing up.
Sing up.
Beautiful. Now you want to feel that buzz in your fingertips on your cheekbones. Sing up.
Sing up.
Good job. Do you feel that little buzz in your fingertips? That's resonance, ring, projection. When people use those words, singing teachers or drama coaches or whatever, this is what they mean. Place it up into the sinuses. Get your voice up and forward. I have what sounds like a loud speaking voice. I'm not actually that loud. I'm mostly just very resonant. I can turn that resonance off very easily. I'm speaking at the exact same volume I was speaking before. I was not speaking very loud. I was speaking with a lot of ring. I turned all of this off. You could press your fingers up here and you wouldn't feel anything because my voice is stuck in the back of my throat now. As soon as I bring it back up here, it sounds like I'm twice as loud. I'm not. This is the exact same volume. This is why I can talk and sing all day and my voice isn't sore and hoarse at the end of the day. Now I have the speaker, I take care of myself, but I can speak this way easily without the amplification and be fine all day long and sing this way. But as soon as you start trying to talk over the kids by pressing more volume and pushing your air and pushing your tension, that's going to be gone in 10 minutes. Easy. But you can carry over them very easily by keeping that space in the resonant call space instead of the shout space. So say, this is my speaking voice.
This is my speaking voice.
This is my singing voice.
This is my singing voice.
This is my shouting voice.
This is my shouting voice.
This is my calling voice.
This is my calling voice.
And that's the easiest analogy is calling. If you think back to most of our childhoods when your mom would say, once the street lights go off, it's time for dinner. So mom would come out on the porch and say, time for dinner! It wasn't, time for dinner! It's not shouting from the front. Maybe your mom was different than my mom. But that wouldn't be, the thing is, the shout isn't as audible. That shout dies at the end of your block. But if you're saying, time for dinner! Timmy, come in! You can hear that 6 blocks down the road, easily. It carries through the night. And that's because of that ring and resonance. The sing E is my favorite one to get that. Do it one more time, put your fingers up there. Say sing.
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 Sing E.
Sing. Sing.
Good. Now this one also gets there really easily for kids. Look at number 4 here down on that first page. As bright, nasal, and ringy. Ignore all that tall space stuff we already talked about. We'll put that back on in a second. Make it as bright and ringy and nasal and gross as you can. Put your fingers up here in your cheekbones and say, meow, 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 meow. Meow, 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 meow. Meow, 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 meow. Great. Now this last one, I want you to do that same thing again. And then the last note, open up to a big, beautiful ah. So I want you to go, meow, 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 meow. And just give me all that space in the back like we worked on, that big yawning space on the soft palate, that dropped dopey larynx, while keeping that ring in the front. Because the problem is, if you just teach space, what you get from them is, welcome all my friends on this fine day. Come and let us sing and dance and play. It's tall, but it's gross, and there's no diction, and there's no ring, and it's out of tune. It's horrible. But you add that ring, and now you have something beautiful. Welcome all my friends on this fine day. As soon as you add the ring, though, they're going to go back to, welcome all my friends on this fine day. And you have to work to get that space back. So, sing for me, meow, 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 meow. Meow, 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 meow. Beautiful! That was lovely. There's a bunch of other warm-ups and exercises in there for you, and a lot of them have descriptions of what they're for. If you switch over to the next page, page 3, of the warm-ups, you'll see "Hey guys" on there. This is another good one for that shouty, cally, chest belt voice. Hey guys. Hey guys. Hey guys. Hey guys. Hey guys. A bunch of other stuff like that that'll help you get that nice ring belt. There's a couple more on the last couple pages that I designed with a friend of mine. Top one is agility. Next one is sustained line. Next one is registration. Those 3 all have tracks available online for them as well, with lovely little chordal accompaniments to back them. And then they move up through the keys, so you can, if you don't feel comfortable playing, if you don't feel comfortable as a singing model for your kids, you can play those tracks. You'll see a link down at the bottom there, soundcloud.com/Topher Keene. All 3 of those sets have MP3 tracks with my professional pianist friend playing them. And then the last page there is one I stole from another friend of mine who did a session, just showing you how you can integrate in your warm-ups into the songs that you're teaching as well. So a sequence there of singing only the vowels, singing words that start with certain letters. You could solfege it, you can have them break it out phrase by phrase, you can have them sing it in a round, but if you integrate the songs that you're singing into your warm-up strategy, then it's not just warm-ups, you're also training them in the songs and how to take what they're learning in the warm-ups and apply it forward into the song repertoire. Speaking of song repertoire, let's sing a song. Can you go to the smaller song packet, Songs and Rounds for Elementary General Music? The last page there I want to bring your attention to. This is one of my favorite resources. I have no idea who I stole it from because I got it like 10 years ago. And then I just added to it over the years. But this is a list of songs that have the same phrase structure and same tonality so that they work together as partner songs. So these are really, really great as a first step into getting your kids into singing harmony. It's very, many of us who don't teach choir see the jump from unison singing toward part singing as a giant chasm that can't be filled. So what I would encourage you to do is break it into small chunks. You can start with a rhythm ostinato. Let's do, for example, do you guys know the melody to Swing Low, Sweet Chariot? Yeah? Swing low, sweet chariot. Let's pick up a higher key. Yeah. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot. simple. Tap, 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 tap. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Change up those patterns, have the kids pick their own patterns, that's great. Then you can add in simple vocal ostinatos. So let's have all of my male teachers, we'll do swing low, swing low, swing low. Ladies on the melody, ready, go. Swing low, swing low, swing low, swing low, etc. We won't waste your time going through the whole thing. You can then add the rhythm and that. You can trade off the ostinato between parts. So some kids get to do the harmony, some kids get to do the regular melody. Then you can just add a little bit of a descant. So let's sing it through one more time, and this time when we get through, can I get this half of the room to just take coming for to carry me home. Just go up to the third on the end. Coming for to carry me home. Swing low. Swing low, sweet chariot. Coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot. Coming for to carry me home. One note, then a few notes. Coming for to carry me home. Coming for to carry me home. You know, add a few more notes, then a full phrase of it. That can be great. I added a nice little ostinato to this in my last public concert. I had my audience sing along with the choir and had them sing along in parts. And they did a carry me home, 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 coming for to carry me home. Now we've got a full kind of legit harmony part. It only has 5 notes. It only has 1 note per measure, so it's more simple. But then you've got something, the foundation there. One of the easiest first steps is partner songs, because nobody is singing harmony. Everyone has their own melody, and you just trade it back and forth. You'll see in this packet, 2 pages back, swing low, when the saints, I want to sing. Swing low, we already know. Sing when the saints come marching in. Right there, it's the second line down. When the saints, 1, 2, go. When the saints go marching in, oh, when the saints go marching in, I wanna be in that number. When the saints go marching in. Who wants when the saints? Great. Who wants swing low? Everybody else gets swing low. When the saints and swing low. You start at the same time. Swing low, when the saints. 1, 2, go. When the saints marching in, oh, when they're coming for to carry me home. Swing low in that number. When the saints want to carry me home. And you can add your rhythmic ostinato. You can add your swing low, you can add your carry me home, carry me home. You can add your harmony parts at the end. You can go as far as you want. I've done 16-part harmony with a combined concert that I did once at a district where I had all the elementary schools, the middle school, and the high school choir. All together, it was like 350 kids on stage. And at the very end, after we did a big combined song, I had them go out and each section of the choir stand where their parents were sitting, because the parents were also distributed by school, and taught the parents the melody that each of the kids would sing. We did like 5 different partner song melodies all together, and then several of them had harmony on them as well. So for example, one of them is Ezekiel saw the wheel way up in the middle of the air. Ezekiel saw the wheel way in the middle of the air. Easy 3-part. Ezekiel saw the wheel way up in the middle of the air. Ezekiel saw the wheel way in the middle of the air. Ezekiel saw the wheel way up in the middle of the air. Just make the triad. That's all you need, and then let the triad move together and make that beautiful harmony. So we had that, we had Swing Low, we had Amazing Grace, we had a whole bunch of other songs thrown in there. It was like maybe 8 to 10 part harmony by the time it was all said and done. But you can do that when you have that many bodies. If you have 15 kids in your classroom or 20 kids in your classroom, 2-part is a great place to get. But you want to change that up frequently. So it's small ostinatos, it's partner songs, and then eventually, after years of this, they can do 2-part harmony songs with the choir. It's a really hard jump from unison to a 2-part song in the choir. So you can make a huge difference here, even if you don't have the choir in your school, because we do have a wonderful choir that's there for your students at one of your schools. You can give them those skills. You can teach them how vocal warm-ups work. You can teach them how their voices work, and you can help them bridge that gap into harmony. Let's talk for a moment about how that bleeds into literacy. Go into that main handout that I gave you. If you've been with me before, you've seen that Gordon learning sequence. On the second page, you got your hand signs and solfege. I know most of you are probably familiar with movable do solfege and use it somewhat in the classroom. Yeah? Yeah, mostly? Cool, great. So let's just do a quick workshop on how I would take literacy from basic, elementary, sing and repeat, all the way up into getting it on the board and getting to notation. So you can take a look at that for a second. If you need it as a reference for the hand signs, that's fine. But you have that later on. I generally don't follow my handouts at all because I want you to have something afterwards that you can dive into. I want the content here to be more relevant directly. So you can set that down. What I would start with is we start with that listening vocabulary. They need to have the patterns in their head before they start repeating them. So, class, please close your eyes and listen to my song. Loo, 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 loo. Getting a nice pentatonic pattern in your head. You've heard almost every combination of notes you can get within that pentatonic scale. And then we start repeating. Loo, loo, loo. You can only speak what you've heard before. You are repeating those sounds. So first, make sure they've heard the sounds you want them to produce. If you want them to produce a beautiful singing sound, they need to hear models of that. And if you can't model a good, beautiful child singing tone, then get some recordings of something like the Phoenix Boys Choir or Phoenix Children's Chorus or many other beautiful choirs. There's lots of resources out there. Play them something beautiful so they can hear what it sounds like when someone sings the right way. Many of them have never heard a good vocal model in their life. Most kids, their parents don't sing to them nowadays, and the music they're hearing at home is hip-hop, rap, pop, country, folk, a lot of stuff that just is not a good vocal model for a child. Even the kids who are hearing kids' music, it's Frozen. And while I love Idina Menzel, she's not a great vocal model for a 7-year-old. So you need to either provide that yourself or provide them with resources that give them that model. Same thing when you're doing literacy. If they're still struggling at reading or composing or dealing with a certain musical element, there's a good chance they haven't heard enough music that has that element in it. So seek out folk songs, recordings, things that you can do with them that have whatever you're trying to teach. I know you do this already, but think if they're struggling, there's a good chance they haven't heard enough. Build up the listening vocabulary first. Now we're repeating. Loo, loo, loo. Loo, 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 loo. Beautiful. Can you repeat on solfege with me? If you know your hand signs, those are wonderful as well. Do, re, mi. Do, re, mi. Mi, re, do. Mi, re, do. Beautiful. Very good job. Then we go into our thinking vocabulary. That's the middle. This is where most people do not spend enough time. Improvisation. It's very, again, just like harmony singing, it's very easy to say, my kids sing songs in unison. I would like them to sing 2-part choral songs in harmony. That gap is so huge, I don't want to approach that gap. But we can have those little chunks of let's add a rhythmic ostinato, let's add a vocal ostinato, let's add a little vocal descant at the end, let's add in partner songs, and now we're ready for 2-part harmony. We've broken it up into 7 or 8 steps. Same thing happens with improvisation. A lot of people see these examples of classrooms where kids can improvise fully within a 12-bar blues bass line, like composing 4-bar melodies and all this stuff. They're like, my kids will never get there. You can make it very, very small and simple. So we're going to use the tone set. Do, re, mi, so, mi, re, do. Everyone sing with me. Do, re, mi, so, mi, re, do. Beautiful, beautiful. Repeat after me. Mi, re, do. Mi, re, do. The rule is you can't use the same pattern that I use. You use 3 notes within that set. Do, re, mi, so, mi, re, do. Any of those notes. You can't do the same pattern I just did. You can do the same pattern somebody else did, that's okay. You can repeat notes, you can do whatever you want, but you can't do the same one I just did. So I'm gonna start, then you sing back, then Anne's gonna sing a new pattern for us, and we're gonna sing Anne's pattern. And then we'll sing all the way down through and everyone gets a pattern. I start. Do, re, mi.
Do, re, mi.
And
Mi, re, do.
beautiful choice.
Mi, re, do.
New pattern.
Do, mi.
Yep, you can repeat.
Yeah. Do, re, mi.
Beautiful.
Do, re,
New
mi.
pattern.
Do, re, do.
Do, re, do. Beautiful.
Do, mi, so.
Do, mi, so.
So, mi, do.
Great choice.
So, mi, do.
Do, so, do.
Beautiful.
Do, so, do. Do, re, fa, re, do.
Do, re, fa, re, do, do. We got another bitch in there, but that's okay.
Yeah,
That happens. That happens, and you let kids do that. And what you also get is the smart aleck kid who goes do, do, do. Valid choice. John Cage wrote a piece called In C. It's all just C's on the piano with a new variety, but you can't write the sequel. Once you've done it once, you're done. You go, okay, you gotta do a new pattern next time. He comes back next week and he goes, Ray, Ray, Ray. He's gonna run out of notes eventually. It's fine. It's a creative choice. And what the analogy I've used to kids for like that before is, would you want to read a book if the whole chapter was just one word? Fish, 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 fish. The first time you saw that, it might be kind of silly and funny, but you're not gonna read the whole book. Because one word does not make an interesting book, one note does not make an interesting story. If we have a note that we sing out of tune, that a kid sings incorrectly, that's fine. Let the class repeat what they heard, and then you can correct if you need to, but a lot of times you just let it go for a little while, because they're coming onto it. Now, one of the things I want to draw attention to is that I know several of you had that little feeling before you started of like, that little bit of embarrassment. Your kids have that every single day. Every single day. Even if they're doing it in a group, even if you're not asking them to do it one-on-one, they have that same feeling. And if you're not willing to battle that feeling, it's very, very hard to get them to battle that feeling. And when they go up on stage once a year, you have 30, 40, 50, whatever years of performance experience underneath your belt, hundreds of performances, you know that when you get up in front of a crowd, they're not gonna come and attack you. You don't die. And you sing a wrong note, you mess something up, your clarinet squeaks, it's okay. You cry, you go home, it's awful, you feel bad, your friends make fun of you, but you survive. Your kids don't always know that. If they've only had 1 or 2 performances in their life, or if it's their first performance they've ever done, they're terrified. I had a K through 12 community choir in Boston, and after my first performance, I had someone come up and say, the kindergartners were just kind of mouthing the words, they weren't really singing. They just stood up in front of 400 people and didn't pee their pants. That's a victory. When you're 5. That's victory. Exactly. They could have been laying on the floor. They could have run away screaming and crying. They just stood there and went like this. That's better than crying. It's better. There's a lot of things that could be worse. So that improvisation is what gets you to take the elements that are floating around in your head, this echoing thing, and actually start playing with the music inside your head. Because it'd be very easy to be completely deaf and still play the piano. You just have the visual cues, and the visual cues tell you where to move your fingers. Visual to physical. You don't need the oral step in there at all. When you sing, you need that oral step. When you compose, you need that oral step. When you conduct, when you teach, when you engage with music, you need that oral step. And improvising forces that. They have to create a musical vision in their head. And that's why it's so great when someone goes, do, mi, do. That's great, because you can tell they had something in their head and they weren't able to make it come out. So now you know that kid needs more training to develop that inner ear. Because they're struggling to make that idea inside, and they're just trying to make something come out of their mouth instead of creating a vision of what the sound is going to be, letting it come out. If that's all you get to by high school, most high schoolers don't improvise that well. What you just did, 3 notes within do, mi, so. You can get high schoolers to do that, that's great. If you got your kindergartners doing that, that's great. If you can go beyond that, wonderful. Reading. Reading is visual to oral. So, read from my hands. Do,
re, mi, re, do.
You're reading, great job. Now you transfer that to the board, you transfer that to notation. The hard part is visual to oral. Spend a lot more time engaging with them with this sort of stuff, or if you use numbers, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, much better to spend time on that than to spend time on the staff. Then you can transfer it to the staff. Everybody follow me, here's my do. Do, re,
mi, re, do, mi, so, do.
Beautiful. Now I don't need all this other stuff. I don't need notation. Yeah, people mess up, and that's okay. That's okay. Now comes the fun part, writing. With writing, we're transferring oral to visual. We can do that with this too. First, I'm going to have you do it with solfege. So we already have me sing, you sing. Now I sing on lu, you sing on solfege. Lu, lu, lu. Yeah, you sing solfege. Lu, lu, lu.
Mi, re, do.
Beautiful. Give me your hand staff. Show me me, middle finger. I'm in the key of G. We'll say this is a treble clef. Doesn't really matter. Mi, re, do. I'm going to sing on lu. You show me on your hand staff what I'm singing. Lu, 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 lu. If I ask you to close your eyes, I'm now assessing dictation across the whole classroom instantly. I don't need handouts, I don't need worksheets, I don't need whiteboards. Now, what I can do is from that, is this washable?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. We just need to spray it first, or else it doesn't come off.
I just didn't want the staff. Oh no, I'm the worst. I'm so
No,
sorry.
I write on it all the time.
Oh,
It's what it's there for.
okay. All right. So here's what I would do to transfer that last part. All right. Can you see those? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Sing. Mi, re, do, re, mi, re, do. Beautiful. Do, re, mi, do, mi, do. Beautiful. Do, re, mi, do, mi, do, mi, re. Beautiful.
Yeah, spray it. Go through a lot of spray.
There we go. Mi, re, do, re, mi, re, re, mi, so. Mary had a little lamb, whose fleece was white as snow. And now you're sight reading. And you can do that with kindergartners. You can do that with first, you can do it with second, you can do it with the youngest elementary very, very easily. It doesn't take a lot to get them into notation. The hard step is ear to eye and eye to ear. So spend time with this sort of stuff, engaging them, getting that connection before worrying about the notation. We jump into notation way, way, way too quickly, and it's totally over the kids' heads. They don't have something, a foundation to use. It's like trying to tell the kids the difference between chartreuse and periwinkle and seafoam and all that before they learn their rainbow colors. They need the basics, and then you can expand off of that. Notation comes way too early in most music curriculums. They need the time to master the musical elements before you give them names for them. The names come after, once they can distinguish between them. They can't distinguish, they're not ready for names. The best analogy I have for that is that little toy when we were kids, that box with the block holes, the square and the circle and the triangle. You have the square block, the circle block, the triangle block. As long as you're trying to shove the triangle block in the circle hole, you're not ready for the word circle. Because your brain is not figured out there's something different about the pointy thing and the round thing. You gotta figure out the round thing and the round thing are the same thing. Pointy thing and the pointy thing are the same thing. The box thing and the box thing are the same thing. And then you can say, oh, these two box things are called squares, and these two round things are called circles. And like, oh, great, now I have a name, now that makes it so much easier. I grab the circle ball and put it in the circle hole. I grab the triangle ball and put it in the triangle hole. I grab the do and the me and the so, and now I can make my Mary had a little lamb from sight reading flawlessly. But that first comes from sing, 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 then hands, then board, then notation. Take the time. Thank you very much. It's been our pleasure. It's our second session together. You got my bio last time. Work with the Phoenix Boys Choir, do a lot of private coaching, did some early childhood, do some retirement community stuff, do choir, do musical theater, blah, blah, blah. I like to sing. I like to teach people to sing. I like to teach people who teach people how to sing, how to teach them how to sing even better. So today we're going to work on making that singing sound even more beautiful in your general music classrooms, and some solfege work as well to transition that music literacy from the ear to the board. A little review of the stuff we did last time, as well as digging a little deeper, and then I got a nice little song packet at the end with some stuff for elementary and early middle general music that you might enjoy. We'll play a few games, sing a few songs. But mostly I'm just gonna have you moving around using your voices today and seeing sort of the stuff that I would teach my kiddos. So you got a nice toolkit of activities to use with your kids to help their singing sound more beautiful and in tune. My goal today is that you get 1 or 2 little 30-second tactics that you can use in your classrooms in the next week. I've been in a lot of PDs in my life. I've given about as many PDs as I've sat through, and I find that if you get 1 or 2 things you can use in your classroom, that is more useful than most PDs. So if I give you 1 or 2 things, that's great. If you don't get 1 or 2 things, hopefully you'll at least get a couple of laughs at the jokes. If not, you can steal the jokes and use them with your kids. They tend to have a worse sense of humor than you do, so they might laugh at the terrible puns at least. Let's jump right in. So the first thing I gave you was the vocal warm-ups packet, which I believe we worked on a little bit last time. So we're going to do that a little bit quicker this time, but just a review on the technique in case you've forgotten everything from the last time. So you can set that down for right now. We'll dive into the packet in a minute, but we're going to stand up and use our bodies to get started, because we'll be singing for the next hour and a half. So we want to make sure we're nice and warmed up. Stretch up tall, bounce on the tiptoes, and down low, touch toes. Shake out the shoulders, shake out the neck. Come up nice and slow and roll those shoulders back. Anything you can do for your posture, your relaxation, your alignment as a teacher is going to be great for not only you, but also for your students. First of all, it's going to help with that stamina. It is a physical job that we do, and you want to make sure that your instrument, your body, is able to handle the physical demands of the job. Every day that you're out is very rarely a day that the students are learning all that much in music. As you've known, trying to write a sub-plan for music usually ends up with watch a video, put on a CD, go through a couple things, or give them free study time. It's hard to really keep the curriculum moving when you don't have a qualified music teacher in the room with them. So if you get 1 or 2 days more per year that you're in the classroom, just because you take better care of yourself, it's worth it. Also, your students are going to model everything they see from you. So if they see posture like this, if they see hunched over shoulders, if they see tight necks, if they see poor breath support, if they hear poor vocal tone, they're going to model that for you. So you're going to get a really good bang for your buck in terms of instruction by improving your own skill in order to demonstrate that to your students. Mostly they're not learning from what they hear, they're learning from what they see. They're gonna model you more than anything. So make sure you have that nice, tall, elevated singer's posture, not that rolled forward, hunched over posture. Can you, for me, clap when I say the word now? Ready, and now. Late. Ready, now. Late. Now. Ooh, almost. Now. Still a little late. Ready? Now. Good. Easier. Eye contact, hands, body. Right? I can give you the instructions, I can say the words, but it's a lot easier when you're watching me, when I'm moving with you, and when I breathe with you to set where that is. We're going to do one more clapping exercise. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, go. Then you're going to clap. 1, 2, 3, go. You clap. Excellent. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Thank you for waiting. I said twice, very clearly. 1, 2, 3, go, then clap. 1, 2, 3, go, then clap. Then I said 1, 2, 3, and clapped, and you wanted to go there because you're adults, you're intelligent, you understood what I said, you knew the directions, you knew I was trying to trick you because I talked about tricking you for a few seconds there, and you still fall for it, and most of your students will too, because they're going to do what you show. And if you say, I need you to sing quieter, well, you're conducting a giant pattern, they're going to sing loud because that's what they're seeing. And if you say, sing with that relaxed, open head voice, just like me, amazing grace, how sweet, they're gonna model what they see and what they hear way before they do what you tell them to do. Very, very little actual comprehension of language at the young ages. They're not really picking up on what you're telling them to do. They're just trying to search for what they need to say to get you to smile and like them and nod. So they're hunting for the right words, but they're not really hunting for understanding. Stretch up one more time. We're gonna have our feet about at our shoulders. Easiest way to find a good foot position is just to do a little hop. Wherever you land naturally, that's where your body wants your feet to be. Usually it's about at the shoulders. If you have one a little bit ahead of the other, that helps a little bit. If you put your feet flat together, you'll notice that you're pretty balanced straight up, but when your feet are flat together, you're not very balanced side to side. Second you lean a little bit side to side, you want to fall over. And as soon as your body wants to fall over, everything tightens up to keep you from falling over. All that tightness creeps up into your voice, you end up with a tight, closed off speaking voice. You want a big, open, beautiful voice. So start with your feet at the sides. Problem with feet directly at the sides is that you're great side to side, you're not so good front to back. You lean in a little bit to make a point, you start to feel off balance, you tighten up in the abs, you lose your breath support, you tighten up in the neck, you tighten up your voice. So one foot slightly ahead of the other with that feeling of almost like a T-Rex. You got a tail going down the back to get that tripod feel. Now you can lean in, you can lean out, you can lean side to side, and you don't feel that extra tension in the core creeping in there and messing with you. So you want that nice solid home base. You want those bouncy knees. If you lock your knees, then the blood pulls down there, you'll tend to pass out. Happened to me in elementary school, you don't want it to happen to you, you don't want it to happen to your kids. Encourage them to keep bouncy knees. Roll the shoulders back, nice open rib cage. We want to be able to get a big, solid lung full of air. Hands down here, fingertips touching. Hands with the fingertips touching right down on the abs. As you breathe in, make those fingertips come apart. Good, we want to center that breath down here in the core, in the belly, not up here in the shoulders. This doesn't help anything at all when the shoulders move. All that does is tighten up your throat. You want to center your breath down here. We're not breathing into our bellies, we're breathing into our chest, but our belly moves to make space for our chest to expand. We talked last time about that diaphragm muscle that sits in the bottom of your lungs. It can only drop when the guts get out of the way. One more time, hands down here on the belly. As you breathe in, expand out like you have a belt full of noses. And out. Good, simple exercise for this one. We're going to take in a deep breath over 4 counts and hiss out over 4 counts. Your goal is to breathe in fully and fill your lungs over those 4 beats, and to exhale fully and fully empty those lungs over 4 beats. So it's in, 2, 3, 4. Full in the in, out all the way empty on the out. Push your air out. And in, 2, 3, 4. Good. A variation on this is to train your students to also suspend in the inhale and the exhale. So what we do is in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Try that for me. The SEALs call this box breathing. It's something they do to help train their anxiety and their heartbeat in order to improve their breath hold capacity when they're doing underwater training in the Navy SEALs. So one more time, hands down here. We're going to get that big expansion. We're going to go in for 4, hold, out for 4, hold. And in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Hold it empty, 2, 3, and in, 2, 3, 4, suspend, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. So you want to get used to that feeling of full inhalation and full exhalation. The goal is that you never feel that full exhalation while you're speaking or while you're singing. As soon as you start to get close to that, 10 to 15% of your lungs left, take that extra breath. Don't run on that little bit of air at the very end of your lungs, or you're gonna find the air cords are scraping together, and long term, that's not so good for your stamina. Same thing with your kids. Their phrases are not gonna sound beautiful if that's the way their phrases are ending. The first Noel the angel did say was to certain poor shepherds in fields as they lay. In fields where we've heard millions of elementary concerts like that ourselves, I'm sure. So get them to have that extra breath support, get them to be used to that feeling of empty lungs. To anticipate that feeling, take an extra breath before that. That extra breath support makes a huge, huge difference. We talked a little bit last time about the overtone issue. Your vocal cords are moving very, very fast when you sing. That little bump inside your throat buzzes hundreds of times per second, sometimes thousands if we got sopranos in the room, depending on the pitch. Very easy to cause some damage there. There's a few things you can do to help that. A, breath support. The more power you have in your breath, the less work the cords have to do to maintain that vibration. B, hydration. If you have any kind of dryness whatsoever, and we live in the desert, you got the circulated air, there's a lot of things affecting that. You gotta be pounding back water all day, and I know that's hard if you don't have bathroom breaks, I'm sorry, but you gotta get that hydration in. It takes hours from when you drink water for it to actually reach the bloodstream. It doesn't get to the cords when you drink it. It goes into the stomach, goes into the blood, then it goes to organs, bones, skin, everything else that's more important than the vocal cords, and finally works its way around to the vocal cords at the very end. So you gotta be drinking water constantly, because if they're dry, that scraping causes some real damage. You wanna keep them moisturized. 3, sleep. Really make sure that you prioritize taking care of yourself and getting rest and getting breaks. Again, just like with the water issue, when you're sleeping in I know it's hard. When you're sleeping and recovering at home though, the thing is, those first couple hours, your body is not focused on repairing your vocal cords. You got to repair brain damage, you got to repair leg damage, you got to repair kidney damage, you got to repair heart damage. All those muscles get little micro tears throughout the day as they're working, and while you sleep, your body goes to work repairing. Vocal cords are the last priority. You're not getting those until that last half hour or so of sleep. And so you got to make sure that you're getting plenty of sleep every night, because even if you're just missing 15, 20 minutes, you're probably missing the most important 15, 20 minutes for your voice. Roll your head around a little bit. Ear down to the shoulder. Chin down to the chest. Other ear to other shoulder. Chin down to the chest. Up straight. And roll the shoulders back. I don't like the back neck roll, because the way the vertebrae are shaped, there's these little spines on the back there. You can pinch a nerve, cause some damage if you're doing a back roll. So try to just do head straight back and straight forward. Rolls from front, side, front are totally fine. Just rolls to the back, not so healthy for the spine. Good, one more time. We got our feet shoulder width, we got our bouncy knees, we got our shoulders rolled back, we got our big open rib cage, we got our centered breath down here, we got our relaxed open throat and neck up here. Everyone repeat after me. This is my speaking voice.
This is my speaking voice.
This is my chest voice.
This is my chest voice.
This is my singing voice.
This is my singing voice.
This is my head voice.
This is my head
I love these gestures because I can use them in the middle of the concert whenever I need a little bit more of one register versus the other. Most often it's my boys getting stuck in their chest as they start singing a song. We were doing Rollo Dilworth this last season. Shine on me, shine on me. I wonder if the lighthouse will shine on me. So while I'm doing my patterns, just a little reminds them, oh yeah, bring your voice up and float it up through the head one more time. In general, in your classroom, speaking with that lighter, more relaxed head tone is not only going to be a great model for your students, it's also going to result in better stamina long-term on your voice too. We also talked last time about ring. Grab 2 fingers on each hand, press them into your cheekbones, and say, sing.
Sing.
Good. Hold that energy again and feel for that buzz in your fingertips. Press right against the bone. Sing. Yeah, you feel that buzz? That's ring, that's resonance, that's projection, that's buzz. There's a lot of words that vocal teachers use for it. At the end of the day, that's the feeling that you use in order to get your voice to carry over other voices. So when you try to shout over other people, you're not activating that resonance, you're just pushing more air and more volume, and that's what's going to blow out your voice in the long term. If you constantly try to speak over your students with volume, eventually you're going to lose your voice. But if you try to carry your voice over them through that ring, you can do that all day long and you'll never feel your voice getting tired. The easiest way to find that calling placement is to just pretend that you're a mom who's coming out, the street lights have gone dim, you're trying to get the kids to come in for dinner and you say, time for dinner! Go ahead. Time for dinner! Yeah, you wouldn't say, time for dinner! You're not shouting from the throat. You're trying to carry your voice down across the entire neighborhood. Time for dinner!
Time for dinner!
Hey, you over there!
Hey, you over there!
Shouting voice, calling voice. Calling voice is what you want to default toward, not that shouting voice. So when you need more volume, bring it more up here and think more calling down the street, less shouting to get attention. That alone will make a huge difference in your stamina over the course of the year. Most teachers spend most of their year shouting over their kids. If you can just learn to call instead of shout, it makes a big difference. The #1 profession in the country for voice damage is teachers. Music teachers especially, because we're making noise all class long. At least in English class, math class, science class, theoretically the students are supposed to be quiet for much of the class. In our classes, most of the class, they're supposed to be making noise. So we have to be able to project over them. All good? Let's move into the piano. Everybody stand up tall, give me a nice beautiful sigh. Oh! Beautiful. You don't need to reference your packet yet because that's got everything there for you afterwards if you want it. What I tell all of my students in private voice is that you need to think of it like brushing your teeth. You don't wait until Saturday and brush your teeth for 3 hours. You brush your teeth every day for 5 minutes. And that way your teeth don't rot out. If you take care of your voice and do a little warm-up and a little cool-down every morning, every afternoon as you're heading to school and when you're leaving, you'll notice a huge difference in the quality of your voice. And even if you're one of the teachers who doesn't do a lot of singing in your classroom, that's okay. I know that I'm more of a singing guy. I'm not going to push you to change the way you teach. My job is to come here and talk about the value of singing. However, if you never use any singing in your classroom, if you never use this stuff for singing, that's okay. It'll affect your speaking voice. Just giving yourself a little warm up and a cool down at the beginning and end of the day will make a big difference in the quality of your speaking voice, and I guarantee you there's no one in this room that doesn't use their speaking voice to teach all day long. So making that a better tool will make you a more effective teacher, regardless of how you use it in the singing. Let's go ahead and start with a nice, oh, hello, you're not on. There we go. Start with a nice easy hum. Please give me a nice tall ah. Oh. When you hum, try to wrap those lips around and keep that big space inside. Don't close your teeth off. Don't shove your tongue to the top of your mouth. Keep a nice big open ah space and wrap your lips around it. Take that same low breath we practiced. Open to ooh. Open to ah. Beautiful. You guys have great voices. Very nice. Roll your shoulders back. Roll the neck around. Something nice and simple and small, range of a third or so. It's a very good way to start out. Just make it easy on yourself. Start in your middle range. Don't go too low. Don't go too high. Just get the chords moving nice and easy. A lot of this stuff has recorded tracks online. You'll notice the links in there in the packet if you want to steal those from me. But you guys are all competent musicians. You don't need a backing track to warm yourself up. Just pick a comfortable medium note to start. And then go up by half steps until you feel like it's getting a little high, and then just stop. It doesn't have to be the same note every day, and it shouldn't be the same note every day. Every day your voice is in a different shape. You got a different amount of sleep, different amount of water, you used it a different amount the day before. All of those things are going to affect where your range is. So just stop when it starts to feel uncomfortable. That's totally fine. Take those hands, put them down here on the abs again. Give me your best Santa. Ho, ho, ho. Ho, ho, ho. Ha, ha, ha. Ha, ha, ha. Good. Ha, ha, ha. My goal is that every time you start and stop the sound with the core, not with the throat. Listen to the difference. Ah, 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 ah. Ha, 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 ha. I want you to feel the abs moving to start and stop the sound. The throat stays open and relaxed the whole time. Ha, 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 ha. 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 Again, 2 fingers on the cheekbones. Say sing. Sing. Get that house right in there. Meow, 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 meow. As nasty and kindergarten as you want, that's totally okay. The point of this is not beauty. The point of this is placement. We can get stuck back here very easily. And when our voices get stuck back here with these big, tall, beautiful vowels, our voices die the second they come out of our face. What we want is for that placement in the front cheeks to help carry that voice across. You guys may be familiar with opera. That you know that opera singers didn't used to be mic'd. You would have an opera singer in Wagner's day with dozens, over 100 sometimes, orchestral musicians there that they had to sing over. You'd have tons of tubas, trombones, clarinets, flutes, string bass, violins, and the single singer would have to be heard over all of that at the very back of the performance hall. Now the halls were made to help with that acoustic, but the thing that really helps is something called the singer's format. Now when you feel that buzz up here in the cheekbones, it's called the zygomatic arch. There's a particular frequency range, right about 3,500 hertz, that the human voice hits in its overtones when that ring is placed, that ring and placement is there. You reach those overtones in the 3,500 range, and no other instrument competes in that specific range, which is why our voices can be heard over every other instrument. It's only if you activate that ring though. As soon as you turn that off, you're lost in the sea of instruments. So what makes the human voice unique and brilliant is that ring right there. One more time, fingers up here. Sing. Sing. Throw it into meows. Meow, 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 meow. 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 Really nasty. Meow, 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 meow. Good, now this next one we're going to do the same thing. I just want you to open up that bottom vowel. meow, 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 and go to a beautiful off, but keep it right in the front there. So turn off all that nasty kindergarten stuff on the last note. Meow, 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 but keep it locked right in the front. Meow, 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 meow. Meow, 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 meow. Beautiful, beautiful. So the goal is to isolate one specific element that we're working on, develop it, and then transition it into blending with everything else. So when you're working on ring, you're not worrying too much about tone, you're not worrying too much about intonation, you're not worrying too much about vowels, we're worried about ring. When we're worrying about breath support, we're not worrying about a bunch of other things. When we're worrying about our high extension, we're not worrying about a bunch of other things. We focus in on one technical element. That's why warm-ups are helpful, because when you're singing a song, you have tons of notes, tons of rhythms, sometimes a key change, lots of different words, different parts going on. There's a lot of stuff to think about. You can't think as much about the technique. The warm-ups are not so much to warm up your voice. Now in the morning, before you even use your voice at all, certainly you need to warm it up a little bit. But most of the time, by the time your students are getting to you, and right now when you're singing with me, you've used your voice all day long. You might need to warm up the super high and the super low if we're gonna sing there, but most of the time we don't. We sing right in the middle range. So you don't really need a warm-up. You need a technical exercise that will help you isolate a specific technique and improve it, and remind yourself that I'm using my voice in a different way now. Because if I spoke to you this way, while we were standing in the hall around the water cooler, it would seem a bit odd, wouldn't it? I'm using a little too much projection, and a little too much ring, and a little too much loft up here in the space. I'm using that great breath support, but it does make me seem a bit odd to talk this way all the time. So I need to go into teaching singing mode, because when I'm normally talking to you, I'm just gonna talk like this. And if I talk like this for several hours, sitting down here on my chords and not supporting from my breath, my voice is gonna be shot. So that's okay when you're at home. It's okay when you're on the phone. It's not so okay when you're teaching. Because A, it's gonna damage your voice. B, it's not a good model for the kids. You need to model that beautiful speaking voice so they can transition that into their singing voice. Lovely. Now taking that ring off, don't worry about that meow, meow, meow. We're going back into that floaty, beautiful head voice. Sigh, oh, I, and I want you to think of that big, relaxed sigh we started with. Oh, oh. Sigh, oh, I, oh, I. 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 Thank you very much. This is one my colleague in Littleton, Travis White, really loves, and it's a great one for competition for your kids to see who can do it the fastest. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, W, X, Y, Z. Make sure you get the full W in there. Try that with me nice and slow. 2, 3, and go. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Good job. A little faster. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Good job. Thank you very much. With the boys, especially, having something they can compete with can really, really help. So something like that gets them fast. I'll give you some solfege competition tools in a minute as well. You can also do that with your breath support. We worked that 4 in, 4 out. Put your hands there again. We're going to do in for 4, out for 4. Then the numbers are going to change. In for 4, out for 4. In for 3, out for 8. In for 2, out for 12. In for 1, out as long as you can. And if you sneak a breath in, you are forever banned from the breath game. You are not allowed to sneak in a breath. You keep breathing out until you're done, and when you're done, you sit down. All right? So again, in for 4, out for 4, in for 3, out for 8, in for 2, out for 12. I'll shout those as you go. You don't need to remember them, don't worry. And it doesn't matter what numbers you pick, as long as the number of breath in goes down and the number of breath out goes up. It does not matter what order you use. These are just the numbers I use. Put your hands there. Push all the air out. And in, 2, 3, 4. 3 and 8. In, 2, 3. Control it, control it. 4, 5, 6. 2 and 12. In, 2. 3 and 8. In, 2. 4, 5, 6. 2 and 12. In, 2. 3 and 8. In, 2. 4, 5, 6. 2 and 12. In, 2. 3 and 8. In, 2. 4, 5, 6. 2 and 12. In, 2. 3 and 8. In, 2. 4, 5, 6. 2 and 12. In, 2. 3 and 8. In, 2. 4, 5, 6. 2 and 12. In, 2. 3 and 8. In, 2. 4, 5, 6. 2 and 12. In, 2. 3 and 8. In, 2. 4, 5, 6. 2 and 12. In, 2. 3 and 8. In, 2. 4, 5, 6. 2 and 12. In, 2. 3 and 8. In, 2. 4, 5, 6. 2 and 12. In, 2. 3 and 8. In, 2. 4, 5, 6. 2 and 12. In, 2. 3 and 8. In, 2. 4, 5, 6. 2 and 12. In, 2. 3 and 8. In, 2. 4 S. One as long as you can. Been doing this for a while. I do have very large lungs. It's very funny. I was actually diagnosed with asthma when I was 22. And what it was I came in and I was like, oh, I know that my lung capacity is not, I'm not getting the breath support that I normally do when I sing. And so I went in, they had me, my blow goes, there's a little thing you blow, and a little ball goes up and they measure your lung capacity. And they're like, oh, it's perfectly normal. I was like, trust me, I know myself. I'm a well-trained singer. Like, I can tell that my breath isn't working. They're like, well, I guess we could try giving you an inhaler for a day and see if it works. Pop the thing. I'm all of a sudden, I'm literally off the chart of the thing. And because I'm 6'3", I have giant lungs, and I've been breathing for choir since I was like 3 years old and done tons of lessons. So I was in the normal breath capacity range when I was having a full-blown asthma attack. So a little unfair, but I've had kids who beat me on that, because it's much more about the controlled outflow than it is about the total lung capacity. It's about, can you control that flow? As opposed to pushing out all that extra air. And you hear that all the time in your kids. Jingle bells, bleeding air. Just throwing out way more air than you need. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle. And now I'm out. As opposed to jingle bells, jingle all the way. So teaching that full closure, that's what we call it in the voice teaching world, is the chords closing completely, not letting any of that extra air escape. It's a really helpful thing for the kids. We want them to have that clarity. It's where that meow can really help. When you get that ringy, buzzy kindergarten kind of sound, you're not losing extra air. A lot of that extra air loss comes from them trying to model our tall, beautiful classical tone, which is wonderful, but you just gotta play that balancing game. I see most choirs are too far on the screechy, shouty, kindergarten screamy kind of sound. Meow, 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 jingle bells. Then the first step away from that, which most teachers like you are more than competent to get through, because you think, oh, that's a bad sound. They're shouting. Okay, I'm gonna teach them to use their floaty head voice. And then you get these choirs that sound like, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride. And yeah, that's better than jingle bells, jingle. But beautiful is a mix between the two. You want that space, you want that lightness, but you also want that presence. Jingle bells, jingle bells. You need to bring it up into the front. Good job, guys. Stay sitting for now. You can sit up tall. Very good job. One last one on vowels. We want to make sure that all of our vowels are sung through the same space. The reason for that is that the difference between vowels, we talked last time a little bit about overtones. The difference between vowels is which overtones are highlighted. This in instrumental music is called timbre. You're familiar with the difference in the sound between your instruments, labeled as the timbre. Now that is about what overtones are being highlighted in the sound. Problem with the vowels is that if your vowel is slightly off from your neighbors, the overtones that you're highlighting can be in conflict and make it sound like you're out of tune, even when you're not. Could I have my wonderful friend over here sing a nice, ah? Beautiful. Go ahead and stand up with me. Can you sing that a little louder for me? Just tall and normal and beautiful. Beautiful. Now I'm going to match her exactly and listen to that match. Good. Now keep that same space. I'm going to change my sound. You don't change anything, okay? You hear it almost sounds out of tune. It's not out of tune. I'm singing the exact same pitch she is, but our overtones are clashing. That's what you're hearing again. Can you do it? Ooh?
Yes.
Do it again. I'm still in tune, but you're hearing the wobble. So what often happens in a children's choir, thank you so much, you can have a seat. What often happens in an elementary school performance or a children's choir, once you have more than 2 or 3, if those vowel shapes are off, you can really have a difficult time telling if they're even singing the right notes. Because if there's any vowels off, your ear is going to tell you someone's singing flat, even if they're not. Because it'd be very easy to spend half an hour, if we're doing a duet, we're singing together, it'd be very easy to spend a half an hour of rehearsal trying to get us to sing that in tune. Say you're a little bit flat, a little bit higher. Okay, here's the pitch, Don't practice it again. A little bit higher. Okay, add a little brightness to the. No, it's not out of tune. It's vowels are not matching. So we want to default to a nice, tall, beautiful ah space and sing through that. Our lips and our teeth and our tongue shape the rest of the vowels. So ah is always our default, that dropped jaw. The easiest way to find that is 2 fingers behind your earlobes. Press right into the bone and then open your jaw until you feel your fingers slide between the bones. You feel that space open up? Now that's a little too big. You don't quite need it that big, but if you imagine that big, your body will default to something that's like 75% of that, which is actually a pretty good shape. If you actually do that while you're singing, you'll notice it's way too big.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?
Way too big. But if I think that, instead of, oh, say, can you see, I get,
oh, say, can you see?
which is much better than either, oh, say, can you see, or,
Oh, say, can you see?
so that cue for the kids will help show them, oh yeah, your jaw is actually not nearly as open as it needs to be. That'll help them get that big open space. So give me a nice, tall, beautiful ah. We're going to sing right here. Ah. Lovely sound. Now the thing to balance is that big open space against that ring. So don't let yourself get stuck in the back. Oh. Always have some front teeth in the sound. My opera coach would say it's like picking up an apple and biting right into it, and having that nice upper palate, that nice front teeth right in the sound. Instead of ooh, sing right through those front teeth. Much better. Beautiful sound. Great job. So now when we shape the other vowels, we're keeping this default shape and we're letting our lips and our tongue do the work. This space stays the same. Repeat after me. E, A, ah.
E, A,
Now close your eyes, go inside your mouth, pay attention to your mouth, and tell me what changes when you change those vowels. E, A, ah. Say it again.
E, A, ah.
Good. What's moving?
Your tongue.
Mostly tongue, exactly. Tongue is up for E. E. Everybody give me your hand. This is your tongue. E, A, ah. You feel the tongue drop down through the mouth throughout that? So that's what's shaping it. You don't need the jaw. You don't even need the lips. You can keep that open space. E, A, ah. My lips don't have to move. My jaw doesn't have to move. My tongue has to move. Go ahead and put your hands on the side of your face like this and say E, A, ah.
E, A, ah.
Beautiful. We're gonna do mommy, mommy, may, mommy, may. Keep that same ah space right through. Mommy, may. Beautiful. The last two are mo, moo. Can you say ma, mo, moo?
Ma, mo, moo.
Yeah. What has to move for mo, moo? Ma, mo, moo. Lips. They're lip vowels. That's what makes them a little bit darker because we're closing off the space. Ma, mo, moo. Mo is much closer to oo than it is to ah. Most people get mixed up with that American O. Ma, mo, moo. Ma, mo, moo. It's very easy for me with my retirement community choir because they all are Lutheran transplants from Minnesota. So Minnesota, don't you know? Oh, oh, oh. Pure oh. Oh, oh. Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, sure. Minnesota, don't you know? Oh, oh, oh. Pure O. You will know that you're not singing a pure vowel if your lips move. If your mouth moves at all, you're doing multiple vowels. O.
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 Yeah, you feel it starts open, then the lips close, and then you get that little w at the end of it. O.
O.
Ew.
Ew.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Pure vowels. Pure vowels are the core. So me, ma, me, me, mo, moo. Ma, me, me, mo, moo. Feel the tongue and the lips shaping the vowels. Don't change the shape inside. Ma, me, me, mo, moo. Ma, me, me, mo, moo. Same low breath. Ma, me, me, mo, moo. Ma, me, me, mo. Bring that ring into the front. Ma, me, me, mo, moo. Beautiful. Stand up for me. Just going to work to integrate those things back into your speaking voice before we move on into our solfege work. Thank you very much for your focus and attention. Give me your feet and your shoulders, bouncy knees, roll the shoulders back, hands on the abs, we're breathing down into here, neck relaxed, roll the head around a bit. Our goal is big space in the back, ring in the front, relaxation in the throat, breath from down here. If you can do those things in your speaking voice, you'll be way more effective with your students because your voice is much more commanding. If I walked in this morning and said, hello, my name is Topher Keene, and I'm going to be working with you today on your professional development. I have a lot of songs and games to share with you, and I am excited to share them with you. I'd be much less effective as a teacher using that voice. A louder, not necessarily shouting, but a well-projected, more mellifluous, more variety in the pitch, more support in that voice is A, going to command attention from your students, and B, be a better vocal model for your students, and C, be better stamina-wise for you to maintain your voice throughout the day. So one more time, we're looking for breath support down here, relaxation up here, space in the back, ring in the front. We're going to practice turning on each of those in sequence. So roll your shoulders forward, hunch over, poor posture, no breath support, and say, Mary had a little lamb.
Mary had a little lamb.
Good. Now roll your shoulders up. We're going to get that good breath support and go, Mary had a little lamb.
Mary had a little
Add
lamb.
a little space in the back. Mary had a little lamb.
Mary had a little lamb.
Good. Now turn that ring on in the front and say, Mary had a little lamb.
Mary had a little lamb.
Check in with your neck and shoulder muscles, make sure none of them got tight, and say, Mary had a little lamb.
Mary had a little lamb.
Hello, class, it's lovely to see you today.
Hello, class. It's lovely to see you today.
Center the breath here, keep this relaxed and free, keep that space, keep that ring. That'll be a great model for your students. You don't need to ever use any of this stuff with your actual students for them to benefit from this work. Every 1, 2, 3% better you get at your voice, you're gonna see that reflected in your students. Almost, I'm in about 100, 150 schools this year, and I will tell you there's almost a direct one-to-one correlation between the vocal skill of the teacher and the sound that I get out of their students. And it's not so much what they're doing in the classroom. I've seen plenty of band teachers who got corralled into teaching general music and don't do any singing really during their day. They just go up and maybe do a Christmas carol at the open house Christmas pageant, but they never really teach any singing during the day. They never had any singing, but they had a beautiful singing voice because they just happened to sing in choir as a kid, and their students sound lovely and relaxed and beautiful because they have that model. And I've seen plenty of well-trained, good voice teachers who speak with a kind of aggressive, pressed, kind of tight voice, don't speak with good breath support, and you hear that in their singers. So you don't need to worry too much about adding this to your curriculum. I'd love it if you did, because it would make a big difference for your students. But if you don't, just making yourself a better singer makes them much better. So I encourage you to do, like I said, brushing your teeth. Few minutes every day. A little stretch, a little breath. Remind you to center your breath down here and keep that throat relaxed. A little bit of sighs and sirens. If you can't do the lip trill, the tongue trill is fine. If you can do both of them together, it actually fully releases the instrument really well. It's the best one I've got, so tongue and lips together. It's hard, but if you can do that, I got that from a scientist from the Mayo Voice Clinic, and it just fully releases everything really easy. So if you just do that a few times a day, it'll really help you out. In the car, before you get to school, in the car when you get back, a little 2-minute, ah, mommy me moo moo, ah, 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 ah. Just going through a few simple exercises. I've got MP3 recordings on my website, but there's 1,000 vocal coaches on YouTube who've done it too. You can take whoever you want, they're all fine. Just find something that's in your middle range and feels comfortable. You can rotate through different exercises. But if you add a little bit of that to your day, I promise you it'll make a big difference in your feeling in your teaching and in your students' sound. Thank you very much. Have a seat. Go on to that second packet I handed you, which is the one that has the title of our worksheet, our workshop together, Oral Literacy. So we talked a little bit about this stuff last time. I'm going to give you some structure for this, and then we're going to do a bunch of solfege work, and we're going to close out with songs and games. So I stole this from Gordon, along with some borrowing from my Kodai work and training as well. If you ever get a chance to do some Gordon music learning theory work, it's really valuable. Kodai training is also super valuable. ASU does a levels program every summer. A lot of schools will give you a kickback on your professional development funds for that too. They do have scholarships for it as well, so I'd highly encourage you to consider, especially Gordon Music Learning Theory and Kodai, but Dalcroze and ORF are really wonderful methodologies as well. A lot of the early childhood stuff can be really valuable too. There's some really great early childhood organizations, Music Garden, Kinder Music. Let's Play Music is a program that's right here based in Mesa, has about 400 teachers nationwide. I just spoke at their keynote conference. They have a really, really great solid curriculum. If you learn how to teach little kids music, it makes you much better at every level because they can't rely on explanations. With the littlest kids, it's all about modeling and it's all about solid curriculum. With the older kids, you can get away with just telling them what you want them to do. With the youngest kids, you have to be able to demonstrate it. So I'd really encourage everyone to spend a little bit of time on some early childhood stuff at some point in your career, because it really does force out the actual teacher inside of you as opposed to the public speaker, instructor kind of person that we can tend to be with our older students. So Gordon's music learning sequence here is borrowed from Brain Science on How We Learn Language. He builds up a sequential set of vocabularies from the bottom to the top. You start with that listening vocabulary. This is the back of the cover of the oral literacy handout. You've got a pyramid right there. The listening is the foundation. Most of our students are not getting a solid listening vocabulary at home anymore. Most of you probably had singing parents in the home. Yeah? Some music in the home? Mm-hmm. Yeah? I didn't have any. There are many music teachers who didn't, but it was less common in our generation. Very, very common now for there to be almost no music in the home for the child at all, aside from the theme music to their favorite TV shows and the background music to YouTube videos and video games and stuff like that. Which actually, honestly, if I had to pick, I would rather my kid be raised on film scores and television background music. And video game music is actually really, there's some good composers in that genre, as opposed to, rap, hip hop, country, rock, R&B, even a lot of modern musical theater stuff is just not good modeling and not really well constructed music. A lot of film scores are actually really lovely. But we used to have a lot more of that for children. They got exposure to it in the classroom, they got it in the church hymns, they got it singing out in the playgrounds, their parents would sing with them, their families would sing Christmas carols during Christmas. And then we had for a while in our generation the Disney movies. And so we all knew Little Mermaid and Lion King and Aladdin and all. And most of my students are coming to me now not knowing that music, which is very sad because those movies really do hold up. And I wish that the parents of my students would show it more. So we had this big gap where we didn't get that for a while. And now we have Frozen, which is nice, but not so much a great model for that. I do wish Tangled had taken off a little bit more than Frozen had. Maybe the sequel will have a little bit better singing in it, who knows. But at least they're singing again, which is nice. Most of our students are coming in effectively not speaking English in terms of the musical language. They're not speaking the musical language. So you say, okay, here's our reading goals for kinder, first grade, second grade. Yeah, that assumes a certain level of language proficiency when the students walk in on day one. Same thing with math. You say, okay, here's our goals. You assume that most of your kids can count somewhat when they walk in on day one. But if they walk in without those foundational skills, you have to adjust your curriculum for that. And a lot of us came into the profession at a time when most students had thousands of hours of listening to good, well-constructed music with beautiful, well-produced singing. And a lot of students don't have that anymore. They're walking into us on day one and they don't have any foundation, many of them. There are many who do, but there are many who don't. And we can't customize our curriculum to the top 5% of the class. So we have to be able to catch those kids. So a lot more listening activities in class really, really helps. Adjusting your teaching style when you're expecting them to learn a song and putting in ways for the song to be repeated over and over and over again really, really helps because they just need to drill it into their head. You've had the advantage over your life as a musician of hearing songs thousands of times and being asked to repeat them back. So you've built up a very good musical memory skill. And most of us forget how hard that was when we were younger, when you hadn't heard 1,000 songs. And it's so easy with children's songs because we've heard so many of them. They're all the same, pentatonic songs all pretty much end up sounding the same after a while. And we can basically, after one hearing, repeat them by memory, no problem. To kids, it's not that intuitive. They need more time. They need to spend some time stewing in it, and they're not going to be able to eventually read and write in music without having a very solid base of hearing music. So, as we would do in music, as we do in language, they need to hear that spoken language for years before they're ever really expected to give it back. So a lot of times in class, I spend a lot of time either with them listening to me singing, listening to recordings of good singing, or just hearing some oral patterns before we move into any actual work. So how I would start at the very beginning of the year, class, would you listen to my song? Got some patterns in your ear. We're singing in an extended pentatonic there. Went down to my low la and my high do. So I've established our tone set. No fas, no ts. I've set up a framework that we're going to play around in for the next chunk of our time. And now you've heard some music that you've got that we can pull from that bank and repeat back and forth. So now I want you to repeat back after me. Loo, loo, loo. Loo, 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 loo. Works for you in your classroom. Some teachers like to move through solfege a lot quicker than others. Some like to start in different parts of the scale. What Kodai recommends and what most teachers in this field recommend is starting with so-me patterns because you get a lot of bang for your buck out of that. There's a lot of children's songs, rain, rain, go away, so focusing around that minor third interval. It's usually the easiest for kids to sing in tune. It's the most natural and comes to them very quickly. Then you add that la on top of it. Na 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 na. And you'll hear that on the playground spontaneously. When kids make up songs, they usually are doing it in a so-me la patterns. Na 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 boo boo, you can't catch me. They'll start making fun of each other, and you'll hear, if you pick it out, most of the time not dead in tune, but they're making use of that interval pattern. So so-me la is usually where we start. You then extend it out to full pentatonic with do, add in re. You got your pentatonic now. Then you go to extended pentatonic, high do, low la, low so. Then you work in fa and ti, because those are the hardest things for their ears to tune. Those half steps, as well as the tritone that comes when fa and ti are together, really, really hard for kids to tune. If they're not reading with fa and ti at all until they get to middle school, that's fine. Totally fine. The way Kodai teaches, we don't even touch notation and solfege work until like 3rd grade. It's mostly all ear and sing back and forth. A little bit of hand sign work, some solfege work in those first couple grades, but they're really just doing pentatonic all the way through the first couple of years. We're not trying to get to that full scale because it comes too soon at the sacrifice of the actual music. The understanding of the labels can come far before the actual understanding of the concept. And the analogy I always use for that is that toy we had as a kid. You have that box with the square hole and the circle hole and the triangle hole, and you got your cube block and your sphere block and your pyramid block. You're trying to shove the block in the hole, and if your kid is trying to shove the cube block into the circle hole, you know there's a problem, because he doesn't get that's round, this isn't round. He's not ready for those terms yet. Once he can start seeing, oh, there's a similarity between this and this, then he's ready for the label. You can say, now that you figured out round thing goes in round hole, that's called a circle. Circles are things that look like this. But if you just say circles are things that look like this, when he's trying to shove the square thing into the circle hole, he has not shown you that he's ready for those two things to be different things. He doesn't get that yet. Same thing with pitch. Same thing with rhythm, same thing with tone, same thing with everything we teach musically. They need to demonstrate that they're ready for the label before we start giving them labels. I'm going to show you what that would look like in a Kodai lesson as we get into our further songs. But I'm building up our vocabulary right now. So we've got our listening vocabulary, we've got our speaking vocabulary. The way that would look in terms of language is I would talk to you for years and years as a child, and then eventually you start repeating back words. We have mama, we have dada, and then we start getting into our thinking vocabulary. This is where the fun happens. This is the improvisation. This is what most teachers skip. You don't need to make this extensive. The reason most teachers skip it is because all they've ever seen for improvisation lessons are like 8-bar improv with 12-bar blues bass underneath it and trying to get their kids to play independent melodies. You don't need to go that far. You can improvise with just 1 or 2 solfege notes very, very easily. Class, repeat after me, please. Do, re, mi.
Do, re, mi.
Mi, re, do.
Mi, re,
You may use hand
do.
signs if you so choose. Do, mi, do.
Do, mi, do.
Mi, do, re.
Mi, do, re.
Do, mi, re.
Do, mi, re.
Do, re, do.
Do, re, do.
Beautiful, beautiful. Very good job. What I want you to do now, class, is I'm going to sing one pattern and you're going to sing a different pattern. It's okay, we're all going to sing our own patterns. They're going to sound different, they're going to sound crunchy. That's okay. But if I sing mi, re, do, you can sing anything you want that isn't mi, re, do. You can sing mi, mi, mi. You can sing do, do, do. You can sing do, re, mi. You can sing do, mi, re. But you can't sing mi, re, do. That's my first pattern. Think of a pattern that isn't mi, re, do. I'll give you 5 seconds. go first, you sing something different. Mi, re, do.
Do, re, do, mi.
Do, do, do. Something different.
Do, re, do.
Do, re, mi. Good job. That's hard. That's hard. That's hard. But within the pentatonic, it'll always just be kind of clustery chords. You could always just support it a little bit on the piano or on an orff instrument. That's fine too. Then we can start going around the class, which makes it a lot easier. So it's actually easier to do this one-on-one than it is in the big group because you don't have people singing other notes in your ears. So I like doing that group one first because it kind of takes the tension away from doing it alone, because then you're like, okay, at least not everyone else is shoving wrong notes into my brain while I'm trying to do it. So now what we're going to do is snake around the room. I sing, you sing. I sing, you sing, I sing, you sing, I sing, you sing. Class, we always repeat after our leader. So I'll sing, whole class sings what I sing, then our friend, whole class, new friend, whole class, new friend, whole class. And if our friends make a mistake, that's okay. Let's just sing what we think they were trying to sing. So listen to the words they use, listen to their solfege, and just try to sing what we think they were trying to do, okay? I'm going to start my pattern, and then every pattern is going to be different. If you reuse a pattern from earlier, that's okay, but try not to. Do, re, do, class.
Do, re, do.
New pattern.
Do, mi, do.
Do, mi, do.
Do, re, mi.
Do, re, mi. Re, 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 mi.
Re, 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 mi.
Mi, re, do.
Mi, re, do.
Do, mi, do.
Do, mi, do.
Re, re, do.
Beautiful.
Re,
Re,
re, do. Do, re, do. Do, re, do.
Do, re, mi.
Do, re, mi.
Bravo, class, bravo. Go ahead and give yourselves a round of applause. I know that's your round. No, I know. And one of my favorite things about doing what I do now as a career is I do several dozen of these per year with music teachers, and I had a big one with 200 teachers at the Early Childhood Conference, and then I did AMEA earlier this year. I do workshops like this all the time, and I almost always have some kind of interaction like this. Often, my last workshop was on helping kids match pitch, and so I just asked somebody, please sing me an out-of-tune note. Sing any note, just sing me a bad note. And I said, no, you can't mess up. I'm asking you to sing a bad note. Please just sing a note that doesn't sound good. But what if I mess up and it sounds beautiful? We get so nervous when we're pointed out this way, and we are the music teachers. Our students feel that way all the time. We make mistakes, yeah. We sing out of tune notes. I did too. That's okay. We can make mistakes in front of each other. We can laugh about it. That's okay. When we try to hide and pretend that never happens, we're not as good as educators as we could be. We have to admit those mistakes. We have to admit those fears. And that's okay, because then we can relate to our students a lot better. Because when we're asking our student after they've written some little, quarter note exercise and they're going to play it on their xylophone, we say, oh, I'm so proud of you, here we go. And then they mess it up. We say, no, it's okay, you don't need to be scared. Yeah, you're scared too. We all are. We all feel that little bit of, oh, I don't want to mess up in front of my friends. Like, yeah, they feel that too. And they don't have 30, 40, 50 years of experience teaching music to lean back on when they get asked to do it. They're terrified. So you need to understand that feeling. And I think a lot of times that improvisation feeling is, we are scared of how we would feel if we were being asked to improvise, and we project that onto our students and say, I don't want to do this with my kids because it's just going to be embarrassing. If someone messes up, oh my God, I can't imagine what would happen. It was fine. There were several mistakes that happened right there, and we just kept singing. It's fine. Some people made some bold choices. We added an extra note. I didn't explicitly say, sing 3 notes. I didn't say that rule. So she added an extra note, that's fine, it's a perfectly valid choice. Even if I had said, please sing only 3 notes, some students will be smart, Alex, and they'll change their pattern around a little bit. They'll add in eighth notes, they'll add in a so, even though you haven't been singing that yet, and you said use do, re, mi. Easier to just move past it and not acknowledge it, because most of the time when they're doing that, I'll tell you, as the kid who constantly did that, it's a cry for attention. That's all it is. They're acting out, trying to show off, look how smart I am, look how cool I am. Either they're going to point out that I did a really good job and I did this extra cool thing, or they're going to yell at me for messing up the rules. Either way, I get to be the focus of attention. Like, that's all they want. So just move right past, keep going, totally fine. And you'll get that, the same thing with kids who will go, you'll go around and be doing a complex pattern and some kid will come and go, do, do, do. Totally fine. That's also a valid choice, it's okay. But next time, they probably should use a different pattern. And if you notice them do do, do, do twice in a row, say, hey, you're not really playing the improvisation game anymore. You've just picked one pattern and you're using it every time. Can you pick a different pattern? And they'll go, re, re, re. They'll run out of notes eventually. It's fine. Just keep moving on, move through it. Eventually you'll get back to it and they'll be able to use it. So thank you. The transition from that would be like listening vocabulary. The dog bit the man. The man went to the store. The dog bit the cat. The man pet the cat. Speaking vocabulary, you repeat after me. The man went to the store.
The man went to the store.
The dog went to the store.
The dog went to the
The
store.
dog bit the man.
The dog bit the man.
The man pet the cat.
The man pet the
We
cat.
have a whole bunch of words that we've said back and forth. Improvisation just means being able to chop those up and put them in different orders. So you could do something like, the man bit the dog and the dog went to the store. I've used the word and to combine those two into a new idea. So instead of do, re, mi,
Do, re, mi.
mi, re, do,
Mi, re, do.
do, re, mi, re, do, I've just stitched them together. That's a valid improvisation. They've taken two elements you've already worked with and just plopped them together. You can take them and extend them and add little extras. Mi, re, do, do, do. Just repeated a couple extra notes at the end. That's a valid way of improvising too. This kind of round robin game thing just lets you get through it really, really quick, lets you individually assess each of those students. You don't have to do the whole class every time. You can do one row and then another row the next time and just sort of rotate through. But it really helps them to individually have to sing individually like that. It forces them to be listening a lot more closely. And you instantly see which kids are getting it and it's clicking with and which kids aren't. And that step is often missed. They need to be able to play with the music in their heads to get to the place where they can write and read. Because writing and reading is playing with music inside your head. That's all it is. I'm looking at symbols and I'm playing around with different sounds until I find the sound that matches that symbol. If I just look at the letters C-A-T on a page and go at, I don't actually understand what that is. Even if I look at it and say cat, I don't necessarily know what that is. What I need to do is see C-A-T and in my head see a little fuzzy thing that meows. That's reading. Musicking is not looking at the notes on the board and saying that's a C sharp in the key of F sharp major. No, that doesn't mean anything. What I need to know is ah, which is probably not a C sharp, but if it was, that's the point. They need to be able to see it and hear the music in their head, hear the relationships, and that's why we use tonic solfege, because it gives them the relationships within that key structure so they have something to hold on to. When they're playing an instrument, notation is enough, because they can see where it fits in, they can play it on the keys, they can have a physical representation of where that pitch is with their fingering. When they're singing, they need the key as a structure to hold what they're hearing inside their head, because they can't physically manipulate their voice to each note. The key is what allows you to do that. That's why Mary Had a Little Lamb sounds the same no matter what key I'm in. Mi, re, do, re, mi, 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 re, do, re, mi, 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 re, do, re, mi, mi, mi. It's still the same pattern. Much better than trying to use note names or fixed-do solfege for singing, because that forces you to be aware of the key before you need to. When you're singing, you don't need to know what your key is. You just need to be singing in the key. Once you've got a do, you're good to go. You don't need all this other stuff. That was a nice little phrase. I should write that down. What was your question?
So how would you address, if you're doing the improvisation activity, for instance, and you have a student that is often off key, how would you give them the feedback without them
Very good
feeling
point.
bad?
So what I would say, I do entire 2, 3, 4 hour keynotes on the topic of working with kids who can't match pitch, so I will reduce it as much as I can, and then I will refer you to videos of past sessions for a full, more complete answer. But what I would say is, you need to establish a culture of singing individually in your classroom. So before you're even getting to this stage, a lot of things like, hello boys and girls, hello Mr. Keene.
Hello, Mr. Keene.
Thank you very much. And then, what was your name again?
Anne.
Anne, thank you, Anne. Hello, Anne.
Hello, Mr. Keene.
Very nice. So I can go around, I don't have to do that to every student every day, but I try to make sure I get to every student every week or two so that everyone's expected to sing out individually. The thing I can do from that too is I can scaffold that instruction, I can differentiate that instruction to make sure that the students who are more advanced, I can give them more advanced patterns. Hello, Mr. Keene. Hello, Mr. Keene. I can change all my solfege patterns for each individual student so that the ones who are more advanced can have a more advanced pattern to demonstrate for me, and the ones who need a more basic thing might just be that so me all year long. And that's fine. Now, once we got to the phase that they're singing individually and I'm noticing a kid is consistently out of tune, there's some strategies you can do in a large classroom setting to help with that. The biggest thing is just matching to your neighbors, getting them to sing in little pairs and little partners. It's much better for them to match to a child's vocal model than to an adult's. So you find one of your kids who's a little bit of a superstar and can sing in tune all the time. You ask Billy to come up and sing the song, and then you ask Susie to stand up next to Billy, and they match each other, and then you ask Stephen to come up next to Susie and Billy and match their sound, and you build up from there so they're listening to each other. time. But if they're struggling individually, in the first couple of years, kinder, first, second, just let it go. They just need to hear more music and sing more music. There's no real reason to go into like intensive intervention mode at that point because they have maybe never heard music in their lives. They might have heard, some radio stuff ostensibly as a child, but like they may have never really been sung to. So they might just need a few years to build up that listening vocabulary. If you're getting into upper elementary and early middle and they're still struggling to match pitch and it's past the first month or two of instruction, give yourself a lot of leeway of just like, maybe the kid doesn't get it yet, they'll catch on in a little bit, because 90% of the time they do. And then that 5% of the time when they don't, I do have an instructional sequence in this exact handout that you're holding right now. If you flip about 2 pages, you will see instructional sequence for pitch challenge singers. And I promise I did not plant my friend here to ask this question, just so I could point out how relevant the materials are. But instructional sequence for pitch challenge singers is right there. That's what I do in a one-on-one setting. That is the equivalent of chemotherapy. You don't use it for the common cold. So if you got a kid who's struggling a little bit, but they could probably pick it up for another few weeks, don't bother with the one-on-one individual thing. Some kids need one-on-one individual attention to really work with that. So feedback in class, easiest way is to first associate it to gesture. So what I would like is for everyone to match my pitch, please. Ooh. You can be down here if you want to, guys, that's okay too. Ooh. Good, can you move your pitch with me? Ooh. And then when I have them singing, I can have this gesture that I can help with and help them lead around. The easiest way to do that, to start that with a child who individually is struggling, is to pull them aside. You want that to be in lunch class, in lunchtime, recess time, some kind of time where there's not everybody else in front of them. And then have them sing first and have you match their pitch and get them to be the teacher. So can you sing a note for me? La. Very nice. Can you tell me if I'm singing the same note as you? La. Thank you very much. Can you give me a thumbs up if I'm doing the right note? La. La. Good. Can you give me a thumbs down if I'm doing the wrong note? La. Can you help me get to your note? La. Very good. You matched my note. What I would love for you to do is hold your note and help me get to your note.
Oh.
Yeah, can you hold your note?
La.
La. Give me a thumbs up when I'm there. Awesome. So if you can get them to coach you into it, then when you coach them into it, it's just the reverse of that game. And that's easier for them. It's easier for them to hold a note and you to match for them than the reverse. Often, they don't understand what pitch matching feels like. So it can help to have two people, because if they're struggling to match pitch, you obviously can't use them to model that sound. So you pull another student in who can match pitch well and have them hold the pitch and have you sing and then ask them to identify it. So can you sing your note again? La. Class, can you tell me what it feels like when we're singing the same note? What words would you use to describe that sound? Sing it again.
Right.
Sing it again. Sing it again. How would you describe that sound? She thinks it sounds right. What else does it sound like?
Clean.
It sounds clean. I like that word. What else? What does it feel like in your body when you feel that, when you hear that?
Relaxing.
Relaxing. I've heard warm. I've heard fuzzy. I've heard open. I've heard glowing. I've heard a lot of different words from kids. Once you find out what that kid's word is for the sound of when they're locked in, then you can use that with them. Because most of the time they're not going to identify, they don't know what matching pitch means. They don't know what sing my note means. They don't mean incorrect. Like those don't mean anything in terms of sound. But I had a kid who said it feels like there's a laser beam pointing out of my forehead. Like, great, that's awesome. When he's not like, oh, I don't hear laser beams. I don't hear lasers. Nolan, come on, more lasers. And like, oh, okay. And then he'd get it back in there because he would notice that. I had a student who I worked with for months. Who I was struggling on matching pitch. She would say involuntary games of follow the leader, where she's just running away from me as I'm trying to play the piano and I'm trying to catch her. And I would keep trying to play a note to get, and she would just run away. As soon as I would, she'd go, ah, and I go, ah, and she'd just run away from my pitch as I'm trying to match her. And one day I finally, I got her to the bottom of her range. She couldn't move anymore. And I matched her. I said, okay, that feeling, that warm, open, whatever, fuzzy, clean, right feeling. What was that like? And she goes, oh, that, you mean like the fuzzy thing? And I was like, yeah. She goes, that means you're flat, right? She thought the feeling of being in tune was what people meant when they said you were singing flat. So every time she felt like she was singing in tune, she assumed she was flat and tried to change her pitch Because she thought, yeah, not common. It's only happened to me once or twice in my career, but you gotta figure out what the actual problem is. Because I mean, she had a rough year too. Like it's not, I'm not to excuse. It's not like she was Beyonce the next day and had perfect pitch, but she was struggling to understand what that feeling was. And what I understood was, okay, this is not an ear training issue. This is a understanding what the feeling of matching pitch is issue. So for some kids, that's the issue. So the instructional sequence I gave you goes all the way back to, can you identify basic high and low? Can you tell me in class, am I making a high sound or a low sound? Whoa. Oh! You're not tone deaf, congratulations, good job. That's step one. If they can't do that, they might be clinically tone deaf. That is a very, very small percentage of the population. If they are actually tone deaf, they don't know the difference between a statement and a question, because the only difference between a statement and a question is that it goes up in pitch at the end of the statement to make it a question. So if they can tell that you're asking a question, then they're not tone deaf. They can tell the difference between a male and female voice on the phone, they're not tone deaf. They can tell the difference between different characters on their cartoon shows, they're not tone deaf. They might just have trouble discriminating. So the very, very easiest step there is high-low. And then you keep moving through that sequence. Most of your students are going to come in already at the bottom of that first page, maybe already on the second page. There's 2 full pages of that sequence. What you do is you find out the skill that they can do, and then you go one step back and practice that and keep working through it until they've mastered it to the end. So if I have my student who can identify big, high, and low, and they can identify large pitch motion, am I going up or down? Up or down? Good. Am I going up or down? Oh!
Down.
Good. Small pitch motion. Am I going up or down? Good. Can you identify pitch consistency? Am I going up, down, or staying the same?
Up. Stay. Down.
Good. Many times they can't identify saying. Now I sang slightly out of tune, so that thing also becomes a problem because they're like, oh, you went down. And they're like, well, maybe a quarter step. Give me a break, kid. I'm trying here. Trying to do the same. So yeah, often they can't identify the pitch staying the same. That's a big key step into matching pitch. They need to be able to not just guess with more than 50% accuracy if it's up or down. They need to also know when your pitch is consistent. Then you go into producing. Can they produce high and low sounds? Class, can you make a high sound for me? Good. Can you make a low sound for me? Good. Very nice. Imitation animal sounds are really great for that. So you just big dog, ruff, ruff, ruff. Ruff, ruff, ruff. Small kitty, meow, meow, meow. Yeah, good. So now we've got them playing with their range, and we can get them to match us that way. Can they produce large pitch motions, sighs and sirens? Oh! 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 Small pitch motion. Good. And then I have these gestures now that I can mess with their pitches. Can you produce pitch consistency? Can you take a pitch and hold it? And would you pick a pitch and hold it for me? Just sing any note comfortably. Beautifully. She can hold a note. So I don't care where that is, or if she's matching to me, or if she's matching to a piano, or what she's doing. Can she hold a note and not make it wobble? Because we've already had going up, going down. Can you pick a place and just stay there? They can hold that. They can learn to match to you. Then you get into the matching. Can they identify when you match to their pitch? And can you sing your note again? Was I singing the same note as you? Wonderful. So she can identify that I'm matching to her. Can she identify if I'm higher or lower or the same pitch? A lot of times they'll know that it's wrong, but they won't know which direction it is. That's where you need to start instructing them on that. You say, I'm going to sing a higher note than you. Can you help me come down to your note? I'm going to sing a lower note than you. Can you help me come up to your note? Eventually, you won't need to give those instructions anymore. You'll just say, help me find your note, and they'll start pointing you in the right direction. That's often where a lot of students need to start, but I gave you those 8, 9 steps before that because just in case, once or twice in your career, you come up with a kid who can't even hold a pitch consistently. You can go back a couple steps and practice those earlier steps. This is stuff you can only really do one-on-one. So a lot of kids will not come in for the extra time. Their parents aren't willing to bring them after school. They're not willing to pay for private lessons, whatever it is. You just gotta let those kids go, and you gotta hope that they get it in class. Some kids will not get it in class. There are kids who graduate high school without being able to read. There are kids who graduate high school without being able to add. There are going to be kids who graduate your program without being able to match pitch. It's unfortunate. Hopefully less of them as a result of some of the work I'm giving you. But for those who are struggling with it and genuinely want to do the work, this will get you there, okay? And then you go onto that back page, it's got more in that sequence for you as well. Can they follow the directions like I was just doing with you? You were doing the follow the leader thing for me, and then I'd switch over to you. The number one thing is start from their pitch. The mistake most people make is they try to start from you singing a pitch and getting the kid to match. That's a more advanced skill. If they could do that, they'd be matching pitch already. So start from them making a pitch. Teach them what it feels like to match pitch. Teach them to help you match pitch, and you're teaching them how to help themselves match pitch in doing that. When they realize like, oh, haha, you messed up. Okay, you gotta go up there. Good job. And you can make it a game. You can just you give them like points and stickers for every time they get you to match, and like you can compete against each other who can match more, and then you deliberately you handicap yourself, obviously. But when they can instruct you to that, eventually they'll be able to instruct themselves that way too and follow your instructions. But it's easier for them to start than for you to start. That's the big gap that we have to make. And voice is easier than piano. Don't start with trying to match piano if they can't match voice. Matching voice is easier because it's the same timbre. I have friends who have many friends who have perfect pitch. I have a good friend who perfect pitch only on the trumpet. Because he's been playing trumpet since he was 4 years old. You play a note on the piano, he doesn't know. Sing a note, doesn't know. Every single note he ever hears on a trumpet, he could dictate to you immediately from memory. Wow. Yeah, it's just locked to that timbre. He didn't do anything else. I have other friends who are locked to piano, other friends who are locked to voice, but in general, they have a broader scale. But it can get locked that way. And voice is just easier to translate into voice. They're going to hear it easier. And for guys, that stinks because you got to sing in your falsetto, but you just got it for the ears in order to get them to match, and then teach them to match at that octave. Because that is an essential skill they'll need eventually, but that might need to be taught explicitly because it is hard. Then you go through the matching, you go through the patterns. Once you got to the bottom there, you've got everything you need for a kid to be able to learn songs. They're matching patterns on a piano and singing them a cappella. So at some point, what you'll find is you go through both of those pages, you'll find one place where they can do the step before and they can't do the step after. And then most likely they can't do all the steps after. So you start one step before what they can already do, build up the skill, because most of the time what it's going to look like in an actual, accurate, well-designed curriculum, a well-designed scaffold and sequencing of skills, you're going to have the base of skills that are 100% perfect. So it might be the first 10 are 100%, 100%, 100%, 100%, 100%. Then you're going to have one that's pretty much there, 90%, one that's like 80%, and then you start failing. You get around 50%, 0, 10%, whatever. So the problem is we see that those kids that can do 80% of this, and we think, okay, I'll start there. No, go back a step. Because that next one before is probably still a little bit of a struggle. Once you get that to 100%, it's got a base that you can build the next skill upon. But if this one is only 70 to 80% accurate, you can't build the next skill on top of that. You're not ready to go on. You got to go back and rebuild that and build it back up. Again, this is 1% of your students max. It's very small, but it's for the kids that are really, really struggling. And that's what I hear when I hear people saying, like, what do you do when you keep singing with them and they consistently out of tune? Like, there are some kids that aren't going to get it from the group instruction. So this is what I recommend in those situations.
Well, a lot of the stuff that you're recommending transfers over to teaching brass players.
100%, 100%. They're big, yeah. That's
and we're gonna have a lot more problems with that because it could be a matter of they can hear it, and you have to do that investigative work. Because sometimes they can hear it and they can see it, but they can't play it. And so, but it's a lot of that same model.
Well, and that's a very good point, because that chain can break in any of those three areas. Either they're not understanding what they're seeing, they need to be taught more about notation, or they're not understanding what they're hearing, they need better ear training skills, or they need more physical skills because they can't actually physically execute the technique that you're demanding of them. So any of those three can be a problem, and they can sound like the same thing. It can, like I was saying with singing, it can sound like out-of-tune singing, but it might be breath support, it might be tension, it might be vowel matching, like we were doing there. Yep. All of those things can all sound like out-of-tune fuzzy singing. And so you need to be investigative and figure out what is the actual cause before you start diagnosing and throwing tools and tactics and strategies at it.
It's about 10 to 4. If you are planning on attending our community meeting,
pull out your song packet.
Could you please make your way to room?
We're going to sing through a couple of lovely songs for your elementary students here. I also included with you a solfege packet there for your upper grades. That's for maybe 5th, 6th starting, but mostly for middle school. Those solfege drills in your solfege packet will get you a lot of really great ear training with your students, starting from a basic scale all the way through doing parallel thirds, full chords, and you can do those in rounds and canons. Really helps to develop their ears. This piano turns off on its own. That's lovely. That is so convenient.
Oh, it doesn't normally turn on.
Oh no? Maybe I turned it off. Huh. There you go. Those core solfege drills are what I use with my upper elementary through middle school through high school to develop their ear training and literacy skills. So I highly recommend you check that out. I was planning on spending a little time there, but I'm glad we spent the time on the pitch matching stuff because I'm sure that is relevant for you. So I'm glad we did. But let's sing some songs before we're done. Sit up tall. Sit up. Roll the shoulders back. Make sure you're getting that deep breath support. This is one I love for teaching minor modes. All right. Well, let's take it down a key. C minor. A poor bird listen to me once. Ah, poor bird, take your flight far above the sorrows of this sad night. Ah, poor bird, take my flight far above the sorrows of this sad night. One works really well in a round. Let's have our 4 to the left sing part 1, our 4 to the right sing part 2. Ah, poor bird, ah, poor bird. Okay, you come in on bar 2. You guys start us off. Ready? Sing. Ah, poor bird. Together. Nice job, guys. Thank you very much. Turn the page over. This one's very fun. Stand up, please, in a circle.
We'll circle
I'll
around.
be the apple tree. I'll be the apple tree. Come around in a circle. Yep, and I'm outside the circle. So you guys are going to make a circle, right, and connect in front of me. Great. And you're going to walk around clockwise. So everybody turn to your left. Turn to your left. You're going to walk around nice and steady with the beat. Listen to me sing the first time through, and you can walk around. And second time, you can join me. Apple tree, will the apple fall on me? I won't cry and I won't shout if your apple knocks me out. Try singing with me. Apple tree, will your apple fall on me? I won't cry, I won't shout if your apple knocks me out. And my apple has knocked you out, I'm so sorry. And we'll go to the next one. Apple tree, etc., etc. We can sing a few more songs. The great thing this song is good for is presenting the concept of do. Once you've been working on your so mi la songs, you'll notice the whole song is so mi la, and the very last note plops down to do. So it makes it very, very obvious for them. So when you're ready to add to so mi la your do, this is a great presentation song. You say, class, we have a song in here we have a note in here that we don't know what to call it. Let's sing our solfege. Ready? So mi, so mi, so la la, so mi, so mi, so mi, so la la, so ba. I don't know what that note is. That's a really low note. Where's mi? Mi, but here's my new note. We have a note below mi. We haven't learned a note below mi yet. We have a new note, class. That note is called do. Can you sing do? Do. So la la, so do. So la la, so do. Very good. So that's a presentation song. What you're looking for in a presentation song is that the element you're adding is very specific, and very obvious. Sticks out completely from everything else. I've got another presentation song here that I want to share with you. It's not this next one, but this one's fun too. Bounce high, bounce low, bounce the ball to Shiloh. You can change out for class names. Bounce high, bounce low, bounce the ball to Ann. This one's great in the early levels for getting high and low contrast. Everybody match my hands. Everybody ready? Bounce high, bounce low, bounce the ball to Shiloh. Bounce high, bounce low, bounce the ball to Shiloh. You can also work steady beat by bouncing tennis balls and other bouncy balls, catching them to the beat. And you can do it as a passing game by calling out the name of the next person you want to bounce to. So the whole class sings, bounce high, bounce low. And the student who's holding the ball sings, bounce the ball to Ann. Everyone sings, bounce high, bounce low.
Bounce the ball to Kelsey.
And then you go around the class, again, getting that individualized singing as part of the day, so you can assess for those students who need help with that pitch matching. And it makes everything much more comfortable. If you do a little individual singing every day, even if each student doesn't do it, they feel more comfortable. And then when you need them to do it, they're ready for it. You know how uncomfortable that solfege improvisation exercise was. If you're doing that every day after school for 2 months, by the end of 2 months, you'd feel totally fine doing an improvised pattern with do, re, mi. It's just because you haven't been asked to do something like that for most of your life. So it feels intimidating. After you've done it for a while, you get used to it. Turn the page. We're gonna skip over that one, but there's a really fun game with Bow Wow Wow. You stand in a circle, stomp to the beat, wag your finger, turn around, switch your partner. Bow Wow Wow is a really fun game for the early elementaries. They tend to love it, especially the boys. It gets you can get really active. You can do the jumps and the spins. Charlie Over the Ocean is a really great call and response song for modeling good tone. I'm gonna take it in a lower key because my voice is a little tired. Charlie over the ocean. You can repeat for me. Charlie over the ocean.
Charlie over the ocean.
Charlie over the sea.
Charlie over the sea.
Charlie caught a blackbird.
Charlie caught a blackbird.
Can't catch me.
Can't catch me.
Class, can I have someone name a new animal that Charlie could catch? What else could Charlie catch?
Whale.
Charlie over the ocean.
Charlie over the ocean.
Charlie over the sea.
Charlie over the sea.
Charlie caught a big whale.
Charlie caught a big whale.
Can't catch me.
Can't catch me.
Thank you very much. That one works really well. And again, this is a good transition into pitch improvisation. Word improvisation is a good starting step for that. Just have to come up to a new word for the song. That's easier than coming up with new pitches. Turn over. This one's another, Let Us Chase the Squirrel is another fun partner chase game. This one is like the bridge games that you've done before, but what's different about this one is that each person as they come through the bridge makes more of the bridge. So each pair of kids as they come through the little bridge raises their hand to make a longer bridge. So by the end we've got a nice long tunnel for the squirrel. Let us chase the squirrel up the hickory, down the hickory. Let us chase the squirrel up the hickory tree. Turn the page. Liza Jane's a really fun upbeat one that's great for working syncopated rhythm. I'm a girl and you have none, little Liza Jane. I'm a girl and you have none, little Liza Jane. Oh, Eliza, little Liza Jane. Oh, Eliza, little Liza Jane. Really helps them get that nice floaty head voice on the high note there, because first time you sing it, you'll get a lot of, oh, Eliza. Woo! Oh, Eliza. Really helps them to work that floaty high head voice. Turn the page. Another word improvisation game. Oh, Mr. Rabbit, you've got a mighty habit of jumping in my garden and eating all my cabbage. What else could Mr. Rabbit eat?
Elephant.
We have an elephant. Old Mr. Elephant instead? Is that what we're saying? You want to replace rabbit with elephant or cabbage with elephant?
No, rabbit's gonna eat the elephant.
Oh, Mr. Rabbit, you've got a mighty habit of jumping in my garden and eating all my elephants. Get out of my elephant garden, Mr. Rabbit. And that, you will always say, yeah, it's always add some levity and joy to the day. Kids will come up with goofy, funny things. It's very fun. And that leads us into improvisation with pitch. Because they've learned that improvising and making up new things is fun and silly, and we can have a good time with it. And then when we do it with pitch and rhythm, it's not as stressful, because we've already done it with words. This is another presentation song. Rocky Mountain right there is one of my favorites for high la. Rocky Mountain, Rocky Mountain, Rocky Mountain high. When you're on that Rocky Mountain, hang your head and cry. Do remember me. Do remember me. Very easy to do the whole thing on solfege with do, mi, so, and then you present that high la as a separated out element there for your students. Rocky Mountain, Rocky Mountain, Rocky Mountain high. While you're on that Rocky Mountain, hang your head and cry. You're looking for songs that have those explicit elements that stick out dramatic. The last two songs I have there for you, nice and simple. Teddy Bear's a really cute one. Again, with a low do presentation. Teddy bear, turn around. Teddy bear, touch the ground. Teddy bear, tie your shoe. Teddy bear, that will do. You can do all the motions with that as well. You can pull out actual teddy bears. Thank you so much, my friend. See you around. And you can present low do and low re with that second verse as well. Go back to snail, snail. And that one's super, super fun. This is what I want to end you guys out with. Go ahead and stand up. You can take a look at it once, so you got the tune, but it's really easy. Snail, 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 go around and round and round. Snail, 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 go around and round and round. Snail, 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 go around and round and round. Snail, go toward the center. You guys keep curling around.
Snail, 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 go around and round and round. Snail, 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 snail,
Tighten it up.
go around and round and round. Snail, 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 snail,
Maybe one wide.
go around and round and round. Snail, 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 go around and round and round. Snail, 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 go around and round and round. Snail, 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 go around and round and round. Snail, snail,
Other way on one.
snail, go around and round and round.
Thank you very much. So that one always gets a lot of laughs too and gets kids bumping into each other. Lots of physical stuff in there, lots of presentation stuff. Take those core solfege drills and take a look at that on your own time. I apologize we didn't get to that, but I spent a little more time on the pitch matching stuff today. I hope that was useful for you. Again, here are the core things I want you to leave with. If you use better technique in your speaking voice, then you will be able to model better for your students. You will have better stamina for yourself, and you won't have to worry about instruction as much. Highly encourage you to take extra care of your voice, sleep, hydration, relaxation, warm up and cool down every day. 30 seconds to a minute. You can download the tracks off my website. All my warm-ups in that warm-up packet have a link at the bottom there where you can get my MP3s online. I also record a bunch of my warm-ups on my YouTube channel. But again, thousands of vocal coaches online do the same. Literally thousands of them. Find somebody you like, find some exercises you like, rotate it into your week. If you do that before you come in the beginning of the day, you're gonna feel your voice feels miles better by the end of the day. It really, really makes a big difference. I'm doing this all day, every day, and I couldn't do it if I didn't take care of myself and if I didn't do those exercises. It's not brushing your teeth. It is like brushing your teeth. You don't wait till Saturday and brush your teeth for 3 hours. You brush your teeth every day for 5 minutes. Take care of that voice. Even if you don't see yourself as a singer, which I know many of you don't, that's okay. You are a professional voice user. You are one of the professions in the country that uses your voice the most. You use your voice more than a professional speaker and more than most professional singers. Most professional singers do not sing for 8 hours a day. Most of them are resting their voices all day long and doing, even if you're on Broadway, you're in Hamilton, you're doing 8 shows a week, but you're not using your voice during the rest of the day. Most of them are resting all day long to save it up for those performances. You're using your voices 4, 6, 8 hours a day, and then going home with your kids and your family and using them even more. Going to other rehearsals and using them even more. Take care of your voices. Build up your students' listening vocabulary. Build up their solfege skills slow and sequentially. Integrating the solfege in with the songs and use nice simple pentatonic songs to get them from the very beginning so they've got that intonation locked into their ears. You've got that instructional sequence if you need it for any students who are really struggling on pitch matching. And if you have any particular problems in your classroom, you've got my handouts, you got my email, you got my website, please reach out. I'm happy to come to your classroom and help you. I'm happy to work with you, and I'm always happy to learn. So if you got something new that you think would benefit what I'm doing, please show me and share with me.